Government Committee. We do have quorum this morning, so I'm now calling meeting number 21 to order. Welcome, everybody. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and also in person at City Hall in committee room meeting number 1. This meeting is also being live streamed on YouTube at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. For the land acknowledgement, I'd like to say on behalf of myself, my colleagues, and our staff, although we may be meeting in different locations today, the General Government Committee would like to acknowledge the land we're meeting on is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also would like to acknowledge Toronto is covered by Treaty Number 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. For those of you that are registered to speak at today's meeting, if you could please listen for me to call your name. I'll call speakers in the order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the General Government Committee at toronto.ca/council and clicking on the speakers box for today's meeting. For members of the committee, I just want to remind you the City Clerk has provided all of our agenda material online at toronto.ca/council and on the clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need help with your electronic devices. And also a reminder to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are also available at ggc@toronto.ca to help with any motions. At this point, I'm going to ask if there's any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Seeing none, can I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting of April 7th, 2025? Moved by Councillor Holyday. All in favor? That carries. We have 21 items on today's agenda, plus one item of new business that'll be introduced. So I'm just going to run through the agenda and see if there's any holds. So our first item, GG 21.1, is a hearing for 9:30 this morning. Apportionment of property taxes as of May 12th, 2025. That's a hearing, so I'm just going to hold that. Item number 2, GG 21.2, cancellation, reduction, and refund of property taxes or payment in lieu of taxes. As of May 12th, 2025, we have one registered deputant, so I'm going to hold for that. GG 21.3, amendment to non-competitive contract 470-23030 with A Supreme Nursing and Home Care Limited Incorporated for nursing services at various shelter locations. Councillor Holyday is holding number 3. Item number 4, GG 21.4, amendment to blanket contract number 470-25662 to Avron Foods Limited for the supply and delivery of snack food for the after-school recreation care program and CampTO child nutrition program for park and recreation.
Hold, please.
Councillor Thompson?
Hold.
Okay, Councillor Thompson's holding number 4. Number 5, GG 21.5, amendment to non-competitive contract order 605-2384 with Onyx Enterprise Solutions Limited for wiring, cabling, and hardware for the provision of wireless internet services at various shelter locations. Councillor Holyday is holding number 5. GG 21.6 is our next item, award of document 460-785-16777 to Neptune Technology Group Canada Corporate for the supply and delivery of water meters and related appurtenances.
I'd like to hold this, please, Chair.
Councillor Chang's holding number 6. Number 7, GG 21.7, award of document 4929553192 to Stantec Consulted Limited for professional consulting services for the Bridge Program Management Assignment number 3 for engineering and construction services. Any holds? Can I have a mover?
Chair.
Oh, I have a speaker on number 7. Thank you. All right, number 8, GG 21.8, award of negotiated request for proposal document number 453097852 to Deloitte LLP for the provision of a managed security services provider for the City Hall's Office of the Chief Information Security Officer. Moved by Councillor Holyday. All in favor? That carries. Number 9, award of document 4755698985 to Carla Construction and Maintenance Limited for the operation and maintenance of a passenger transportation shuttle service for High Park and other potential parks. And we have speakers for number 9. Number 10, GG 21.10, award of document 47697143545 to Royal Bank of Canada for banking services for the City of Toronto. Any holds? Can I have a mover? Councillor Burnside, all in favor? That carries. GG 21.11, non-competitive contract with Zamboni Company Limited for proprietary original equipment, manufacture parts and services for parks and recreation. Councillor Holyday wants to move the Zamboni contract. All in favor? That carries. GG 21.12, non-competitive contract for Circular Materials Ontario for the authority to pay producer obligation fees the 2024 reporting year. Any holds? Can I have a mover? Councillor Cheng, all in favor? That carries. GG 21.13, non-competitive contract with GC Duke Equipment Limited for the provision of proprietary original equipment, manufacturer parts, and services for parks and recreation. Can I have a mover? Councillor Burnside, all in favor? That carries. Sorry, number 14, GG 21.14, non-competitive bridge contract with Acklands-Grainger Incorporated for the supply and delivery of various industrial supplies, equipment, and services for various City of Toronto divisions. Councillor Holyday is holding number 14. Number 15, GG 21.15, expropriation of portions of properties at the rear of Jolly Way and the rear east side of Jenkinson Way for the Scarborough Rapid Transit Bus Replacement Stage 2 in Ward 21. Can I have a mover? Councillor Thompson? All in favor? That carries. Number 16, GG 21.16, expropriation of property interests at 320 to 326 Bloor Street West for the Spadina Station streetcar platform extension in Stage 2. Any holds? Can I have a mover? Councillor Chang, all in favor? That carries. GG 21.17, application for the approval to expropriate temporary easements for the Midtown Toronto Storm Sewer Relief Project Stage 1 in Ward 8. Any holds? Can I have a mover? Councillor Thompson, all in favor? That carries. Number 18, GG 21.18, payments modernization framework. Councillor Fletcher, good morning. You'd like to?
Or is Councillor Fletcher holding it?
I believe Councillor Cheng's holding it, and Councillor Fletcher has questions. Number 19, GG 21.19, overview of security practices for employment access card photos. I'm actually going to hold that. Number 20, GG 21.20, response to requests for targeted 311 enhancements. Any holds? Councillor Cheng?
I'd like to hold that, Chair. Thank you.
David, at this point, would you like to introduce anybody?
Sure, if I have the opportunity.
Yes, since we're at the 311 item.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to introduce a new member of the Corporate Services team, the new Executive Director of the Customer Experience Division, Daniele Seraphim, who's sitting who's sitting in the staff row back there. So welcome to the City of Toronto. And I know this committee is looking forward to working very closely with you and with us to advance customer experience improvement. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the senior management team of the Customer Experience Division who came together in the absence of a permanent executive director leader and worked effectively over the last 9 to 10 months to run the business, with particular thanks to Rupi Chahina, who stepped in as the acting executive director for the last 9 to 10 months. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, David. Welcome, Daniele, and I promised Daniele we wouldn't go too hard on her this morning. GG 21.21, Toronto Zoo Community Conservation Center, lease with University of Toronto Scarborough. And I'm very excited about this as a Toronto Zoo Board member. This has been a long time in the making. I wanted to thank all of the Toronto Zoo staff and the University of Toronto Scarborough for this partnership, and I'm going to move the recommendations. All in favor? And that carries. And Matthew, we have one new item of business. Where would I? All right, we have one item of new business I'm going to introduce, GG 21.21, nominal sublease agreement with the Malvern Family Resource Center for use of a portion of the Finch Hydro Corridor as a community garden. And I'm going to introduce this and hold it while everybody can have a read of it. All in favor? That carries. All right, we're going to go back to number 1. GG 21.1, apportionment of property taxes as of May 12, 2025 hearing. This was a report from the Executive Director of Financial Shared Services. We don't have any deputants, no amendments, and I will move the recommendation before us. All in favor? That carries. And our next item is GG 21.2, cancellation, reduction, and refund of property taxes of payments in lieu of taxes as of May 12, 2025. We have one registered speaker, and I just have to find my list. We have one registered speaker for this item, Arman Talabazah. Good morning, sir. Mr. Talabazadeh, can you hear us?
Hello.
Good morning, sir. You have 5 minutes to address the committee. And just for clarity, you have 5 minutes to address the committee. Each member of the committee has up to 5 minutes to ask you questions. And then we end your interaction with you. We bring it into, we call bringing into committee, and then we each have 5 minutes to ask questions of staff and move any motions on this item. So you have 5 minutes to begin whenever you're ready, sir.
Good morning. Sorry to take the committee's valuable time. I'm just calling this morning, attending this meeting to ask if the committee can help us regarding a property tax, which is specifically the vacant home tax charged on my property for 2023, while the property has been demolished. The house has been demolished by an order of the city due to the fire in late 2022. And the property has been a vacant land. And we have been charged for the vacant home tax on that property at the amount of almost $14,000. And I want to see, we have tried our best to refund this money, but so far we have not been successful, and I want to see if the committee can help us to expedite this refund.
Okay, thank you, sir. Questions of the mover, or sorry, questions of the deputant? Sorry, sir, can you just clarify, so you had a residential home on the property and there was a fire?
It was on fire in December 2022 and by the city order, by the fire marshal order, because of the safety matter, it was demolished the day after the fire in late December 2022. And it was normal for us not to file any declaration of the vacant home tax for 2023 because we thought that the city is aware of this order and action. So because of that, we have been charged afterward with $14,000 for the vacant home tax for the 2022, while the city has accepted the land has been vacant and adjusted the property tax itself for a vacant land for 2023. But still the vacant home tax is not refunded.
Okay, sir. And you said the city's accepted that the land is vacant. You have documentation that shows that?
Yes, through another committee, actually the city accepted that and granted the adjustment of the property tax from the residential home property with the dwelling to the vacant land dwelling and reduce the amount of the tax for 2023. But the vacant home tax is still there. We have paid it.
Okay, and have you reached out to Revenue Services and explained all of that to them?
Actually, yes, we did. We sent email with all the pictures, all the order, everything. But unfortunately, so far in the past about 2 years, we haven't received this refund.
Okay, we'll see if we can get this sorted out for you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Questions of staff? All right, Councillor Holiday, you have the floor. Give it a shot.
Thank you, Chair. To staff, I just wondered if you could let the committee know what the best course of action is to try to resolve the concerns of the speaker.
To the chair, so staff will be reaching out directly to this individual and ensure that through the notice of complaint process, we're able to deem the property exempt from the vacant home status, as it should be.
Okay, and the second question, there's no critical timing or window that if we don't take action on this report at this moment that would give up an opportunity to refund taxes? To
the speaker, you're correct. There is no, there's no impact of us approving this report on our ability to work with the homeowner, the property owner, in terms of ensuring that the property is properly deemed exempt based on the circumstances just noted.
Okay, so just to reiterate, you have the ability to reach out to this individual and sort things out?
Yes, I'm looking at our interim director of revenue services who will be reaching out to the individual following this meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday. And so how does this happen? Like,
to the speaker,
does the disconnect happen?
I can't speak to the specific circumstances. So there is a process. The notice of complaint process would be the process to receive the information as it relates to the vacant home tax. The individual had noted they were working with the city. Working with the city, it may not have been directly with revenue services or through the notice of complaint process. So it's ensuring that it goes through that process for us to be able to correlate it to the VHT charge.
Okay, so we can leave it with you, Mr. Conforti, to make sure it gets resolved?
Yes, you can.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so any other questions of staff on this item? No? Can I have somebody move the recommendations? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Holiday, all in favor? That carries. Our next item is, with speakers, is GG 21.7. Yeah, I'm gonna deal with speakers first. Deputants. GG 21.7, award of document 4929553-192 to Stantec Consulting Limited for professional consulting services for the Bridge Program Management Assignment number 3 for engineering and construction services. And, sorry. We have one thank you. We have one registered speaker, Mr. Michael Longfield from Cycle Toronto. Morning, Mr. Longfield. You have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you. Thank you, everyone. My name is Michael Longfield. I'm the Executive Director of Cycle Toronto. I'm very pleased to be speaking with you all today. So just want to remind members of this committee, and especially members who are on council, that back in November of last year, City Council passed item CC 23.1, respecting local democracy in cities. And at the time, the item that Mayor Chow put forward was in reference to the provincial bill 212, which has since become known as the province's attempts to meddle in provincial jurisdiction and rip out about 19 kilometers of Toronto's busiest bike lanes, directly against the will of City Council and this item that y'all passed. Despite this, the province did pass the legislation. It passed it despite over 20,000 submissions arguing against it. Almost no comments in favor of the legislation. Local experts like engineering firms, good roads associations, associations of association municipalities, all against this legislation. But as the province went to election, they announced that they were moving forward with the plans and that they'd hired an engineering firm to do this work for the province. And the firm that bid on this and that they hired was Stantec. And so I'm basically wondering to members of this committee, why are we offering Stantec a $20 million contract when they are actively involved in ripping out Toronto's own infrastructure that y'all have passed and that y'all have helped us pay for? Stantec are obviously a very qualified firm, and I understand on a objective criteria, they might score highly, but I think given this information and given this is work that is actively ongoing, for folks who don't know, Cycle Toronto is also involved in a legal challenge against this as well. We currently have an injunction against the province, which is partly why the bike lanes are still on the ground, but this is an ongoing legal matter, and again, it's ongoing engineering work directly against the will of Toronto City Council and all of y'all. So again, I guess my question for members of this committee, is this a contract that we need to award to Stantec? There are lots of other very qualified firms as are identified here. If this is something that we should have basically reconsider about how we're spending our money and where we're spending it. Obviously, I think it's apparent where I might stand on this, that I don't think this is a good use of city funds to be paying a firm that is actively involved in basically undermining your authority, but I think it's a question for all of y'all to consider. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Any questions of the deputant? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation, sir. So you're actually asking us to be punitive with respect to this contract by not awarding it to Stantec. Is that what you're asking us to do?
I understand why you're framing it that way. I don't think it's necessarily a matter of being punitive. I think the City of Toronto should be allowed to set its own standards about who it chooses to work with and what contracts it chooses or bids it chooses to accept, in the same way that Stantec chose to take on this contract with the province. I don't think it necessarily needs to mean that Toronto never accept another contract with Stantec or any other firm, but I think especially in this context, while this work is still ongoing with Stantec, I think it creates a bizarre kind of conflict, and especially given the amount of money here, that this is a $20 million contract. I would sort of ask that maybe the committee do a little bit more due diligence, maybe look at some of the other firms that were scored. It does say in the notes that city staff would be open to reviewing that with committee members in camera. And maybe that's something that folks could do here, and maybe sort of look at some of the other firms that bid on it and help make a decision that way.
Thank you for that. With respect to the work that Stantec is going to do for the province, what's the nature of that work exclusively? Is it simply to remove the bike lanes that are actually in place, or is there additional element to their professionalism as such?
So it's not publicly not fully clear. Up until a couple months ago, there wasn't any details about it publicly that I'm aware of. Stantec have since sort of implied that the scope of their work has been reduced since they originally started, but there is still ongoing work that's being planned, and even before the province said they were going to appeal the current injunction, the minister's comments were that MTO staff were going to continue to work on the engineering design, so presumably that involves continuing to work with Stantec on this as well.
So you're not questioning Stantec's professionalism, you're just simply saying that based on your views and maybe the views of others, which were perhaps similar to yours, the city should not engage in this particular process of this contract with this firm because they're doing work for the province on a particular project that you don't necessarily agree with respect to the province's approach, but the province is actually looking at getting assessment in order to have, I guess, information that would help them in terms of learning more and helping you and others and so on. Stantec, that professional organization, would actually provide that independent professional advice to the province who are the contractors of the service. Is that correct?
I was just thinking through what you were saying. I just wanted to make sure I got it.
Sure.
I think the important thing to anchor this with as well is, this opposition to the removal of Toronto's bike lanes isn't just something that's coming from Cycle Toronto or our supporters. It is something that's City Council itself passed, and this contract would not exist if the provincial government and the Premier and the Minister of Transportation sort of followed the directions of what it was that City Council was kind of asking for, which was a real collaboration to look at evidence-based solutions to help all Torontonians move through the city more efficiently and safely. And so, I think based on everything we know about this, I think it'd be a stretch that Stantec is operating as sort of some independent third party, just sort of evaluating pieces of this. They've been hired by the province of Ontario to move forward with this plan to remove bike lanes in Toronto. It's not some independent observation of the situation. They've been hired directly to do the engineering work to remove these bike lanes that City Council has passed. And in the case of the Bloor Street West Bikeways, City Council has passed it now, I think 4 times every time it comes up. So I think y'all have been pretty emphatic on that.
Thank you very much. So we should be punitive.
You should have the permission to sort of look at contracts and who's bidding on them. And again, especially in the case of where work is being done in direct opposition to what it is City Council has said, at least look at seeing that there are other qualified firms that are doing this.
And you don't believe that staff has actually done that work based on the fact that this report is in front of us today?
I don't know if staff had that as like a requirement. I think staff probably, again, I can't presume to know what direction staff had when we were evaluating this, but I don't think they were directed to look at or take into consideration the other work that Stantec is doing. I think it's safe to assume that in a vacuum, the criteria staff put forward is probably very rigorous and very good, like most of the things they've done. Yeah. But it probably wasn't within, I'm assuming that it wouldn't be within their, they weren't directed to also consider, well, what other contracts is Stantec currently engaged in on this?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Burnside.
Yeah, thank you. So let me get this, I'm just trying to understand this. So Stantec legally bid on a contract and was awarded by the Ontario government, yeah?
Presumably, yes.
Okay. And they've legally bid on a contract for the city and appear to be the best, yeah?
Yeah, Stantec have a strong international reputation in doing design work, correct?
Okay. So obviously you're well versed in city politics, I think probably all politics. In the procurement process, there are certain criteria that are listed and they get scored and then the best company wins, yeah?
Yeah, presumably so. Again, I wasn't directly involved with this, but read the short summary of the 2-parted process with the closed envelope for the second part involving the financial piece. I think in a vacuum, I don't have any reason to question the process that how the city evaluates these things.
Yeah, and I'm just talking as a general. Yep. We don't even have to be specific to this company. Just try. Okay. So you're suggesting that that we should add a criterion that says if we don't like contracts that a company legally bids on and legally wins, we should write them out of our contracts, even though they might be the best suited for our contract. Yeah.
I think this is like a very unique case. I understand framing it in a general sense, and I think I understand why, from your perspective, Councillor, that's how you're approaching this. I think this is a extremely specific case where the province of Ontario has put forward legislation that no other jurisdiction in the world has done, and also in this case that City Council were very emphatic against this legislation. And, you know, in the case of organizations or firms bidding on contracts, Stantec also had the option to not bid on a scheme that would involve removing this type of safe infrastructure that is actually building is actually a big part of their international brand.
So yeah, so what you're saying, back to my original question, is if we don't like a contract that a company wins legally in another jurisdiction or higher level of government, then we should impose our moral will. Is that correct? Yeah.
I think part of the reason these contracts come to this committee and they're not just stamped once staff review them is for committee members to be able to put this additional layer of analysis on it. I think staff did their due diligence in putting forward the evaluation. You know, they do say as well that there is the opportunity for committee members to review the criteria and the scoring. I don't know how highly Stantec did or didn't score. I assume highly because they won. I also know there were other very qualified firms in there as well. I don't know the scoring difference. And I think those could be things this committee looks at. And I think there's a reason why, again, Toronto doesn't just automatically enter into contracts with the highest scoring one, that these come to these committees to get evaluated by y'all. And I think part of your work should be evaluating these edge cases like this one right here.
Right. So back to my question was, do you think we should add that criteria or criterion into the procurement process?
I mean, possibly. I think, you know, again, I think this is such an edge case of I don't think there are many other situations that come up where an engineering firm or any contractor is actively doing work that City Council has been very emphatic that they are opposed to that work happening. So, you know, possibly that could be a criteria, but, you know, as far as I'm aware, I'm not aware of any other situation where this has come up in the past.
And 6 months ago, we wouldn't, or 12 months ago, we wouldn't have been aware of this situation. But, okay, so my last question is, I think you mentioned that this is all before the provincial ability to do what they want to do is before the courts,
yep.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if the courts say it's illegal what they're doing, so it's not allowed, then Stantec would not be taking part in that contract the province is awarded. All work would cease, no?
Presumably. I don't know what they'd be paid for work that has already happened, but presumably the work would end. That would be our hope with the legal decision, correct?
Okay, so if it's illegal, they're not even, this whole conversation. So if it's illegal and the bike lanes don't get ripped out, okay, right?
Yep.
Follow me on that one. But we as a committee already preclude Stantec from doing the work that we're looking at now. Don't you see that as maybe being a little bit of a problem?
Last question.
Excluding them from work they may not even be doing.
I mean, it is work they are currently doing, though. I mean, even based on the minister's own comments, the design work is ongoing, and the component of it that Stantec is involved in it is currently ongoing. So it's not in the situation. It doesn't appear to be in the situation that no work is happening or Stantec is waiting to see if they're going to be involved in the design work pending this legal case. They are actively involved in this design work now.
Okay.
Sorry, and I know this is my last question.
Councillor
Just to follow up, yeah, just to follow up on that, I would really appreciate your indulgence. But what I'm saying is, if we preclude them from this contract, and the provincial government has to stop what they're doing anyway, aren't we sort of making a judgment call before the appropriate time?
I mean, possibly one of the things this committee wants to consider is to wait pending the full legal challenges result. I think that's also within your purview.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Burnside. And just before we go on to further questions of the deputy, and I'm just going to remind everybody that we're here for the contract that's before us, work that the winning proponent or proposed winning proponent is doing is outside the bounds of this conversation. It's whether they're working for another level of government or another municipality, that's really outside the bounds of this conversation. We're here to approve approve or deny the contract that's before us today. And just as a reminder that this proposed proponent or contract was done in, as the report says, in accordance with the terms and conditions as set out by the request for proposal and any other terms and conditions satisfactory to the chief engineer and executive director of engineering and construction services, and in a form satisfactory to the city solicitor. So if everybody could just remember that within the confines of your questioning. Thank you. Councillor Chang, you have questions of the deputant? Sorry, you're on mute.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask the deputant, does he feel then that we should not consider Stantec in any work for the city moving forward? Because I believe they're a large consultation firm and might have many projects that they might be working on at any given time.
If you were to ask me, I would say while this work is currently ongoing with the province, that potential new contracts, I think there are things this committee should look at very seriously, yes. And again, just to what you were saying, Chair Ainsley, I agree with everything you were saying in terms of outlining the process overall, and again, don't mean to...
Sorry, if you could stick to answering Councillor
I will. I just want to come back to the point too, but I think in this case as well, you know, these decisions ultimately are political decisions as well, and it's why they come back here. And so,
Mr. Longfield, you can answer Councillor Chang's question, please.
Yes, thank you. It was a way of me coming back to that. And so as part of that consideration, while this work is currently ongoing, and especially as it's currently disputed in the courts, I think it's...
Sorry, Mr. Longfield,
I'm
last warning.
I'll just ask one more question.
Sorry, I was trying to...
So
because
my last question is, do you feel that our procurement process then in the future should examine all the work of any given consultation firm, and given that it is very likely that large consultation firms probably work for the province and the city on different projects, and look for potential conflicts of intention or purpose, and those conflicts should preclude us from working with certain projects, certain contractors that may have work with the province where there could be different interests with the city?
It might be something that this committee might want to look at as part of its criteria setting and the guidelines it give to city staff as part of that. It's possible. Again, I'll come back to, I think there's a reason why these contracts come back to y'all to be voted on, and they're not just rubber stamped based on the scoring and move forward automatically. That these become, by nature coming to this committee, they become political decisions. It's just the nature of how the city works, and partly that you're all responsible for how we spend our money.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cheng. Any other questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Longfield. Questions of staff? Councillor Holiday, questions of staff?
Thanks, Chair. I guess to the procurement staff, Stantec scored the highest.
That is correct.
Is cost a significant factor in the scoring?
So the request for proposal process includes the scoring of the proposal as well as looking at the lowest cost that we can achieve with that.
Okay. Does your recommendation come on top of...
I showed it to Antoinette.
Yes.
Hang on a second, there's a bit of crosstalk. Okay. Does your recommendation come to us in thinking of jurisprudence and rules and principles of procurement? I'm thinking of like contract A, contract B, that sort of thing. You bring these recommendations to us because of that entire ecosphere of how people do business, right?
To the chair, that is correct.
We have an ability under our procurement rules to place a penalty or I shouldn't say penalty, to suspend a vendor. What are the reasons why we would suspend a vendor?
So through the chair, that is correct. We only have very limited possibilities for suspending a vendor or a supplier. So that would be an unsatisfactory performance, bidding practices that are prohibited by law, so bid rigging, unethical bidding practices, failure to honor a bid, and failing to disclose a potential conflict of interest or unfair advantage. Those are the only reasons why we would suspend and prohibit a bidder from bidding.
And that's done to help enforce the procurement rules. It's not a penalty.
Correct. It's an accountability measure.
Right. Do we have the ability to sanction a company because we don't like something?
I would say within proper procurement practices, no, we don't.
Right. Now, council has sanctioned people before, but through the procurement process, can you think of an example where we sanction someone?
Unfortunately, I can think of times when we have suspended suppliers for poor performance and or unethical bidding practices. We have brought up sanctions against countries, but not specific suppliers that I can think of.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Other questions of staff? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. So there is a rigorous procurement process that you've undertaken with respect to this particular project, not specifically Stantec, but just the project itself.
That is correct. We go through an evaluation process and considering the mandatory requirements, technical requirements, and a thorough evaluation. In this case, as Jennifer noted, it was an RFP. So if proposals would have been scored fairly and evenly throughout. Again, we compare to the requirements, not to each other.
So that rigorous process, you're not looking at the I guess the company or organization that you've selected, you're not looking at their other business, I'll use the term, connection as such?
Correct. What we would, again, account for is, again, illegality that might have occurred.
Right.
But in this instance, we would not be looking outside the scope of what was presented within the RFP. So if they're doing business with another entity,
right,
unless it truly created a true conflict, that would be something they would have to declare. But no, again, we'd look at fairness and transparency.
Right. So through you, Mr. Chair, would I be safe to assume and presume that you are apolitical with respect to the procurement process?
Correct.
So the machination and the external political, I'll use the term stuff, that you all are looking at has nothing to do with the procurement process?
Correct. That's a common procurement practice to stay out of politics.
Right.
It's your fairness.
And so it's fair to say that organizations that are responding to RFPs, RFQs, or RF whatever, of the city, would be doing business with other agencies, other businesses that the city perhaps may be in an opposite position on particular matters? Would that be safe to say?
It could occur, correct.
Then if that was the case, because you're apolitical, you're not looking at any elements of that because that's not your business.
Correct. We are not in the business of telling other businesses how to run their business.
Right. So through you, Mr. Chair, the matter that's in front of us is simply to look at a contract that your staff have basically rigorously done the analysis, you brought everything together based on how you do every other procurement process that you deal with, and you deal with thousands of them, I guess, on an annual basis?
Correct. Thousands. Yes.
So there is nothing unusual about what you've done with respect to this Stantec report that staff is asking this committee to address based on the requirements and the details associated with the process that you have to go through.
Correct. It was a very standard process, again, evaluated fairly through consensus, following all the same steps that we normally would.
Sure. And then my final question through you, Mr. Chair, from a legal perspective, what exactly would be the ramification should we decide not to proceed with this? Maybe that's a question for legal, to proceed with this contract based on the fact that there's nothing here that suggests that we have the authority or the ability to not proceed with the contract. That's for
Correct.
legal, I guess.
Yeah, so it is a contract day, so this is why legal would be best to answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as a matter of law, I just want to articulate that Chapter 195, Article 13, that's our procurement bylaw, sets out very specific factors which can be considered when there's a consideration to prohibit a vendor from bidding. And my colleague has touched on those slightly. I don't feel that the consideration brought by the deputant this morning falls under any of those categories. So I think specifically your question, Councillor Thompson, is what would be the ramifications, the legal ramifications on the city to the extent that the city were to pull out from this procurement at this point? I don't want to go too far into details on that, because if I were to give you any legal advice about this, we would have to go in camera, but there would potentially be the possibility of attracting legal liability as a result of terminating this procurement at this point, particularly to the extent that the grounds for termination were not specifically listed in Article 13 of the procurement bylaw.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions of staff on this item? Councillor Cheng?
Just a few questions through the chair. So does anyone see a conflict as described by the deputant in terms of moving forward with Stantec? Is there a conflict if we proceed with this contract?
Do you want to go?
It doesn't strike me that there's any conflict of interest, or that the issues brought forward by the deputant this morning fall within any of the exemptions or the factors to be considered in the supplier code of conduct in the municipal code.
Great, thank you. My next question is more about the work that Stantec will be doing. Is there a requirement that they incorporate smart sensors or drones to analyze our bridges in order to optimize our ability to maintain them? I know that this technology is used in other countries, and I'm just wondering, in our parameters, are we requiring that, or is this something that they are going to be doing?
To the chair, I can respond to that. So in terms of the work that Stantec is doing, they will be working for us, and we will, again, you've raised and mentioned many times the opportunities for advanced technologies, and yes, we will be working with them in terms of looking at those advanced technologies and how that might be applicable to both the management and the design of bridges. It is something that we as city staff will be doing ourselves and working with them on.
So this contract does not have any technological requirements, and they would not be prescribing or utilizing any technology to do the work that we are agreeing on in this contract.
To the chair, we do have, we prescribe that they provide us with services, and as an engineering consultant, they will be incorporating their technologies in order to be able to achieve those goals, to maximize their efficiency and to provide us the best product possible. We will also work with them in terms of how we can explore other things and incorporate those innovations into our work, because we're seeking them all the time.
So when they pitched for this contract, did they offer in terms of what technologies they would be using? Did they suggest how they would be modernizing or optimizing their work?
I'm going to have to, I don't have, to the chair, I don't have any details on that specifically right now, but would be happy to get back to you on that. Stantec is an advanced company in terms of asset management and monitoring of infrastructure services.
Does that mean that our procurement requirements did not actually lay out what types of innovation we're hoping to see? It was more just the practicality of doing the monitoring, but we didn't actually say we would like to see more modern processes employing technology such as smart sensors or drones and AI analysis. Like those things were not part of the RFP, and therefore quite possibly, unless as we move forward, we ask for it, it's not built into what is going to happen next.
To the chair, there is an innovation component in the bidding process. I'm just not familiar with what they specifically provided us in terms of their innovation requirements. So we do score the opportunity for them to add innovation in terms of how they do their design and monitoring of our bridges. So it is there, and again, we continue to explore those things when we're working directly with the consultant.
This is a little concerning to me because if it's not in the RFP, there is for example, if we were to want to put smart sensors in all our bridges so that we can monitor certain things automatically through a dashboard, there would be a hard cost to that. And so if it's not part of this RFP, it means that the work that they are proposing is probably still not that innovative. And if we were to try to go in another direction, there would be additional costs that we haven't even calculated or determined yet. This is actually not moving forward in an innovative way with clarity. It's maybe the intention, but in this contract, we actually don't see how we're going to implement something that is, based on what is already available around the world.
So to the chair, it's a design and construction contract. And so those elements don't have a physical, that you're speaking to, they don't have a physical cost in this particular contract. Those elements would be captured in the future tenders that we would send, and those would have a cost. So it's about the design elements of the work that we'll be working with Stantec on, rather than the hard costs that you're speaking to.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ching.
Okay, thank you.
Are there questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, speakers? Councillor Thompson?
I'd like to move the report. I want to thank Michael Longfield for coming to express the views and concerns of obviously the cycling community. I'm assuming that to be the case. And of course, he's expressed that others have expressed their concerns to the province. But it's a night and day situation. We have a contract that is intended to help us in order to facilitate and rehabilitate our bridge work, and we have a company that has a world-renowned reputation, that our staff, who has gone through the process of ensuring that a rigorous process has taken place, have done so. And I think that we need to ensure we applaud them for the great work that they do, because they do amazing work. And so I get this desire to be political, and I think our staff is apolitical, which I'm thankful for, because we wouldn't want agreements coming to us that's based on politicalization or being political. We want the fair analysis, which is actually what we actually have in front of us. That fair analysis has asked us to take the information and to make the right decision based on the recommendations here. I understand the nature, whether or not it's nefarious or otherwise, in terms of the views that people have, and you're entitled to them. But the fact of the matter is that there is a process here, which we're part of that. We've asked a lot of questions. There's nothing irregular about the process and about the awarding of this contract. Quite the contrary, everything is regular, and that is really the decision that we have to make based on the facts. Legal has demonstrated to us that there are ways and means, if a contract is, for us to make decision is not appropriate, that we could do that. None of those tests are met here. None of those tests are even in question, quite frankly. And as much as we may want to sort of bring, stuff out of the air and say, well, look, province has contracted this company, Stantec, which has a reputation that is not being questioned. We're dealing with them and have dealt with them for some time because I've seen over my 22 years here their name on other projects and so on, and I've not heard anything negative about this organization. Quite the contrary, they're fabulous, they're fantastic, which is great. That's the kind of businesses that we want to deal with respect to as a city, and being assured that the work and the quality of the work that they actually do obviously is within the context of our standards and so on. So what are we being asked to do here today? Let's unpack that. We understand that there is a political conversation and actions that are being prescribed dealing with bike lanes. Some people are for them, some people are not. Mr. Chair, you and I are dealing with a matter in our ward right now where our residents are very concerned about what's being imposed. I don't want it. I don't think you want it. None of our residents want it. But that's a different conversation. The fact of the matter is that we're not saying that the staff who bring the information forward should be disqualified for making decisions in other staffing matters and so on. Not at all. Quite frankly, we need to look at each of these situations uniquely with the lens that they're actually required to be looked at. What's the lens here? It's a procurement lens, not a political lens. And as much as we like to confuse and conflate stuff, let's be very clear what we're doing. We're being asked to approve a contract based on the needs of the City of Toronto. And yeah, it's a lot of money, but that's the nature of these things, quite frankly, because they don't cost $1. They cost a lot of dollars, quite frankly. Staff have done their work. We need to ensure that we support them. And again, there's nothing wrong with someone coming in saying, hey, I disagree with this and you folks need to look at it this way. They can make that ask. But legally, can we do that? And the answer is no. Is there a procurement negative aspect to what has taken place that would negate us accepting this report? The answer is no. What are we doing here? We're doing the standard things that we require our staff to do, which is to bring forward report based on this, a full analysis, flushing things through and making sure that everything that is required to be done as part of this process is done and is actually being done. So we have here today a clear definition of a clear process, which is our procurement process that's being followed, it's being implemented, and it's in front of us to make a decision. And I wholeheartedly move this report with no reservations, Mr. Chair. So thank you very much. And thank again the staff for doing amazing work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other speakers on this item? Councillor Cheng.
Thank you, Chair. That we have before us a report that is about a bridge rehabilitation program that supports the state of good repair of city-owned bridges and culverts. This is how we're going to rehabilitate 28 bridges between 2025 and 2028. And my hope is that we give strong consideration to modernize how we monitor these bridges as we move forward in their rehabilitation. Smart sensors can play a crucial role in bridge monitoring, providing real-time data on things like load, strain, vibration, and detecting earlier potential issues, resulting in better proactive maintenance. So as we go about planning how we're going to fix all these bridges and make sure they're in a good state of good repair, I hope that that process includes how we're going to employ technology that is used globally to do this work. And I see that in the US at least, I'm not sure if they do it here in Canada, Stantec actually does use something called Skydio, which is a drone that monitors bridge quality. So I hope that, and I guess my concern is in our RFP process, if we're not proactively identifying the technologies that we want to see to become part of the solutions that we want engaged, it leaves a very open field that could lead to drag and a slowdown towards the modernization of our city. So I look forward to hearing how this is going to move forward, and will always be champion for modernization of our city in terms of smart city technology. So I agree with Councillor Thompson. You know, anytime we come to a huge contract like this, it is significant, and I'm sure a lot of work went into it. So I'm not saying that staff did not do their due diligence. I just hope that we can highlight the use of technology in a very forward way moving forward in any of these types of procurements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chang. Are there speakers on this item? Seeing none, so we have the recommendations before us in the report moved by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? Sure. Recorded vote. Matthew, the floor is yours. Okay, all in favor? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Holiday, Councillor Chang, Councillor Burnside, and there's none opposed. And that carries. All right, our next item is number 9. Sorry. Our next item is GG 21.9, award of document 4755698-985 to Carla Construction and Maintenance Limited for the operation and maintenance of a passenger transportation shuttle service for High Park and other potential parks. We have 3 registered deputants. The first deputant is Marshall Lewis. Sorry?
His name is Marshall Leslie.
What did I say?
You can just say his name.
Marshall Leslie. Did I say it backwards? My apologies, sir.
That's
You have
okay.
5 minutes whenever you're ready.
The name looks good either way. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak to the committee. This is a very unique process. My name is Marshall Leslie, and for 31 years, my family and I have lived about a block and a half from High Park. And during that period of time, we've taken advantage of just about everything, I think. Organized field sports, summer camps, taking a dip in the pool, the zoo, meals, walks, TDSB, track and field days. And so as a resident, as an individual, I've been very interested in this. I've read the report and the attachments carefully. I would like you to reject them and to send them back because they are inadequate. Let me give you those reasons. The recommendation does not support the goals of the High Park movement strategy. For there is no integration of the shuttle with Wheel-Trans, the TTC subway platforms at Keele and High Park stations, and there's no consideration for the recommendations of the city's Parkside Drive plan. The shuttle routes do not even include stops at the new High Park entrance at Parkside Drive and High Park Boulevard, nor does it go so far as the Spring Road parking lot in the southeast, which will be the sole parking lot that remains when the park is closed to personal vehicles in 2027. Number 2, the existing annual license fee has been removed and replaced with a 15% gross revenue share. However, there is no ability included in the agreement or the report to examine financial statements to verify revenue and expense calculations. In fact, there are no performance metrics at all, no risk liability requirements. There isn't even a fair wage policy statement. Number 3, the name of the electric vehicle manufacturer is not provided. There is no source, there's no delivery date. And this is very important because it is not known whether any comparable services are offered in Canada or can be offered. And I want to tell you that the very first thing that the purchasing department said to Parks when working on an RFP last February was that they should perform research and find out whether there were any comparable equipment suppliers. 4th, some High Park roads have steep grades. Colburn Lodge Drive, Center Road. During warm weather currently, when it rains, the existing shuttle doesn't operate. In winter, when there are more adverse conditions, there will be no operations or the operations will be delayed. 5, 4 wheelchair spots does not mean AODA requirements are met. In fact, Parks was admonished by the accessibility consultant for the city for not putting enough weight on the requirements for the shuttle to meet an AODA plan. 6, the service building that has been proposed does not, in fact, have any services. No washroom, water, sewer, electricity. Attachment number 1, major terms and conditions of the agreement, makes a passing reference to a porta potty for staff to use year-round. 7, there is no definition of staffing levels. It is entirely possible that there could be 1 employee operating a train with 70 people in December during bad weather when those trains are open cars. 8, the 2026 passenger fare, GST included, $10 for adults, 7 for youths, that age is undefined, 5 for children, that age is undefined, 7 for seniors, that's me, is an increase over current fares, but there is no language for the remainder of the agreement's term. In fact, it's open-ended so far as fares are concerned. This is $30 to $40 for a family to take a 25-minute ride. This is congestion pricing for park goers. Recommendation number 2, and this is my 9th point, authorizes the general manager for Parks and Recreation to sign additional license agreements with Carla Construction for other city parks. The internal communications within parks specifically brings up Tommy Thompson, Toronto Islands. In other words, this is not a Ward 4 issue. This is a city-wide issue. Number 10, finally, the report and the bid were prepared in haste. When City Council prepared this, passed this in May 2023, Parks did not approach purchasing and begin planning on this until February of last year. And that was to advise and provide advice for the hiring of a consultant. And I see my time is up now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Leslie. Questions of the deputant? Councillor Holyday.
Thank you for speaking to us, Mr. Leslie. At the beginning of your presentation to us, you referenced the High Park movement strategy, and I think this is a last mile piece. Could you explain to those of us that don't know the park perhaps as well as you is why it's so important under the High Park movement strategy to have this equipment?
Well, WSP, who was contracted by the city to consult with Parks and Transportation Services, a very large, be a familiar name, I think, to people in the city. In their final report, which was not provided to council and was never released to the public, they identified these things, and they said that the transit shuttle service would provide both the first and the last mile. And what they meant was that initial contact at the beginning of the ride with an integrated TTC and delivery finally to whatever stop, whether it was the streetcar at Howard, the High Park subway station. Because the shuttle service currently works on a seasonal basis only within the park. But if you're carrying luggage, equipment, small children, if you have an ability issue, the question is how do you get from A to B where the shuttle is going to pick you up? And of course, the number of shuttle stops that there are and where they are located internally within the park. So that's what I mean. That's what is meant sometimes by first and last mile.
To help us best understand, High Park, if I remember, is a really big place. And so the point in this is that the High Park movement strategy essentially sets almost a perimeter around the park in terms of porosity for motor vehicles. And then the idea, I guess, is that this trolley will go around and move people. But why is that important? Like, what's in the park that attracts people, that makes it necessary to get into the heart of the park?
High Park is unique. It's over 150 years old. It's older than Algonquin, Banff, Jasper, Lake Louise, Stanley Park, the Parc Montréal in Montreal. 400 acres. There's a zoo. There's some exceptional full fields, and I have to emphasize that full fields are very important. If you have had children that attend the ward, there's no elementary school with a full field. There's only one secondary school in the entire area that has a full field. There's a pool, there's skating pads, there's a labyrinth, there's numerous marked trails. There's some quite unique aspects to it, and, you know, occasionally you might see a deer.
So the idea is that this thing would move people around inside the park. There's currently already a trolley there, or this is my word. I mean, it's a piece of equipment. It's a tractor, right?
Yeah.
Pulls a cart. Does anyone know how busy that is today and why that might change in the future or not change?
I can't answer that question. I know that Parks doesn't have any ridership projections. They haven't tried to, they haven't asked.
Do you feel confident about what's in front of us?
Oh, no, I don't. I think, I think it's a policy failure.
How important is to get this right to your enjoyment of the park, or at least your neighbors?
I think it's more important to people with respect beyond the park. I mean, I live a block and a half away, but for people who sign their kids up, I mean, if you can't get access here, what are you saying? You're going to schlep to Centennial Park, to Rob Ford Stadium? Because there aren't alternatives anywhere close by. So I think that going forward, when we talk about making the city walkable, when we talk about making it accessible, with densities increasing, I think it's absolutely essential. And not just for High Park, but for, you know, Serena, Tommy Thompson, for Centennial itself, for all of them.
You okay to pay to go in? Because that's what this says, right? You've got to pay.
I live a block and a half away.
Okay.
I'm spoiled. When I said I was going to do this, my son said, "Dad, are you crazy? Do you realize how much the value of your house just went up?" And I said, "No, that's not the point."
Okay, thank you, Councillor Holiday. Councillor Thompson, questions of the deputy?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Leslie, and thank you very much for being here. Sounds like you really love the park.
My mom came from Saskatchewan at the beginning of the war and worked at Canada Packers, and she lived in several different places, and she belonged to the High Park Ski Club, you know, so it goes back.
Yeah, so you've got a strong attachment. Mm-hmm. So you are not here to suggest that we don't do something to be able to move people around. You're here to suggest that what we have in front of us is not the best, I guess, opportunity at this time. Is that what you're here to tell us?
Oh, I would use a little bit clearer language.
By all means.
This ain't it. This is a promise made and a promise broken.
Got you. So it's just not ready for prime time.
No.
And we need to take this back and do some more work.
Well, not only that, but if you've got your eyes on Toronto Island, I mean, yep. or the Leslie Street Spit.
Sure.
Great name too, by the way.
Yes.
You know, then you should think about that too.
And that's what you want us to really to do. It's a big picture, more comprehensive, objective
Absolutely.
approach.
I mean, what's the Leslie Street Spit going to look like if you have to install charging stations? Where are you going to put the garage?
Right.
It's going to be harsh out there in the winter time. You know, you got to think about a lot of this stuff.
Right. Through you, Mr. Chair, you mentioned, Mr. Leslie, the WSP report. You mentioned that it wasn't made available to the public. At least that's what I thought I heard, and yes. Obviously we didn't see it. How did you get it, or did you get it?
So beginning in the fall of 2023, but then at the beginning of January, a group launched an extensive Freedom of Information requests. There are now 14 Freedom of Information submissions, 12 to 8 city divisions, and 1 each to the Toronto Parking Authority and to the TTC, asking questions about all aspects of the strategy. And we have received, and it's not complete yet, but we've received over 9,000 pages so far of reports, drafts, slide decks, lots of emails and stuff like that, and we're reviewing that currently. Now, there's still some outstanding stuff. There's one large one from Parks that we're waiting on right now, and there's 2 that have been appealed to the Information and Privacy Commissioner. Legal Services is being really sticky on this, and the people at the Information and Privacy Commission have suggested to us that we should be prepared for Legal Services to request a judicial review of what has gone through so far, mediation and adjudication. But this is something we're prepared to do because Legal Services is objecting to the release of their opinions between 1974 and 2008, starting with Mr. Crombie and ending with Mr. Miller, on the interpretation of the deed and trust of the Howard family as it applies to uses of High Park. So it's a very interesting story.
So thank you for that, Mr. Leslie. Are you, and sounds like your group and the people that you're working with, is it the Friends of High Park? What is the name?
It's a bunch of different people.
Okay.
There's the people with the petition now online and writing, got over 25,000 signatures.
Yeah, I appreciate that, sir. I only have 5 minutes, so I want to be able to ask you this question. Are you in support of vehicles traveling through the park as we were did that before? Were you for that or against that particular position that council took, which is to restrict?
As near as we can determine, vehicle use in High Park has been restricted since June of 1968.
Okay.
And in some way, and I'm fine with that. And the City of Toronto previously considered a complete ban, and Parks Commissioner George Bell delivered his report to the city's executive committee in the spring of 1981 after a full consultation at that time. And, we just think that periodically this sort of thing should be looked at again, but done right.
Fair enough. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions of the deputant? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Leslie. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
The next deputant is George Regakos. And Mr. Regakos is online. Mr. Regakos, can you hear us? Mr. Regakos, could you unmute yourself, please?
There we go. Okay, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep, you have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone, and good morning. My name is George Regakos, and and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. For some full disclosure, I am a moderator for a Facebook group called High Park Access for All. The group is comprised of people who are concerned with accessibility to the park and all park users. The group is over 700 strong and mainly consists of seniors, those with mobility issues, parents of small children, and like myself, people who know these people. Today, I'd like to provide some feedback from the group and from myself regarding the shuttle proposal and recommend the proposal be sent back for some further due diligence. So some of the feedback that I've received from our group members, specifically to the proposed stops. So we're getting into a bit of detail here, but the nearest stop from the Parkside entrance is down by the Duck Pond by J.B. Bell Playground, which is a long way for people with mobility issues, young families, and elderly to reach. It was suggested to add 2 extra stops at one point, one at the the children's teaching garden, and one at Colburn Lodge. Only the teaching kitchen is proposed at this point. So visiting Colborne Lodge would mean driving right past the front door of Colborne Lodge and down the steep hill to the Queensway. It's a long, steep climb up to Colborne Lodge for those with a disability, young families with strollers, or elderly who may find it difficult, if not impossible. So the recommendation is actually to add a couple more stops to the route and also extend the route to the entrance at Parkside Drive. So the group also has some concerns with respect to the affordability of the shuttle. So right now what we're looking at is prices where it's $10 for an adult, $7 for youth, $5 for children, and $7 for seniors. So I comment here, the fare structure being proposed is about $1 more per rider than it is today. So the estimated cost of a family of 4 with young children would be about $30. So it's $30 to go through the park. This is after you've either paid to get to the park by TTC or that you've paid for street parking. And if you add grandparents to the list, it could get to another $14 or $44 to be able to come to the park with a family, depending on the time of year. So there is a mention of a family pass, but no cost is mentioned. The proposal also states that tickets are valid for a minimum of 4 hours, but no explanation of how this would work. So I'm just wondering how expensive it would be if you do spend more time in the park. Another group member wrote very bluntly, if it's not free, it's out of the budget, unfortunately. And there seems to be some sort of expectation that a solution would be free, if not very inexpensive for people to use. So the person who wrote this one is a woman that has 4 teenage children and a husband who is disabled because of an industrial accident to his foot. They've not been able to visit the park on weekends due to the closures and the changes to the park. Unfortunately, now she has to work full-time during the week and they can't get there during the week because of that. And the cost to her as a family would be $48. And again, that doesn't include the cost to get to the park. So basically, she's saying she's shut out. The proposal does mention that rates are to be competitive with other places, such as Centre Island, I believe was mentioned. But I would suggest that the scenario at Hyde Park is different in that people who visit the park would do so on a more regular basis, especially if they are involved with sports, if they have a lot more gardens, if they do dog walking and so on. So the pricing model, I think, should be revisited if we want to attract people to the park using the shuttle service. Okay, another thing that's popped up is it isn't clear who's to build and maintain any shelters at all the stops. So currently the stops are not sheltered. There are poles just identifying the stop, and if there's any plans to provide, are there any plans to provide shelters at the stop? This would be worthwhile, as waiting in the rain and the cold for a shuttle that arrives at half-hour intervals could become quite uncomfortable. That is assuming the shuttle is operating during inclement weather. The locomotion train there today does not. And then the shuttle is not of use to some of the user groups in the park that should be considered. There are allotment gardeners who would not be able to bring their gardening equipment onto the shuttle. We also have dog walkers who use leash-free area and some who need it for their business. And I believe the shuttle only allows for service dogs. Baseball and soccer teams carrying field equipment may pose another challenge. And we were told that the shuttle was going to solve all accessibility issues. It seems like it will not. The city should look at who's being left out, and if there are stakeholder meetings taking place, these groups should be considered. So one other thing that, it's 5 minutes, okay, I'll be real quick here. So one of the things that mentioned is the TTC, about the TTC providing service. The proposal states should maintain seasonal 203 Hyde Park bus during weekends and holidays throughout the summer months to provide service in the park until the shuttle is in operation. So this item, I think, needs to be clarified. Currently, a park user can catch a 203 at Hyde Park Station in order to circle the park on weekends in the summer. Will that service disappear?
Could you wrap up, please?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions of the deputant? Councillor Holyday?
Thank you, Mr. Rigakos. I wondered if you could help the committee understand a little bit about the experience on the seasonal bus from Hyde Park Station. So if I come from Etobicoke to go to the park, how does it work for me?
So if today, if you were taking TTC, I guess you would take what ever bus that would be nearest to you, take the subway across from, I'll say Kipling, all the way to High Park Station, you can get onto what was a bus. I think it was changed to a vehicle that is similar to the Wheel-Trans with the TTC label on it, and you can get into the bus on weekends during the summer months only, during certain hours, from High Park Station, right? And you can get back on to get from within the park to get back into the High Park Station from there.
So,
yeah.
so I can get on that bus and it comes roundabout every now and then.
Correct.
Now, I took a real hard hockey puck to the knee on Saturday, and I'd be a little leery about walking a big distance. If I'm not on that bus and I get off at High Park Station, how long is my walk? Like if I wanted to go into the Ball Diamond or the pool or to the Labyrinth or to see Colburn Lodge or something like that?
Right. So they're all different distances apart. Of course, it's a big park. So if you were going to literally just to get to the entranceway of what was the entranceway of the park, it would literally be crossing the street. However, to get to amenities, depending which amenity we want to go to, it's quite far. For instance, in my example, I'd like to take my mom to the park, but she's got hip issues. I'd like to take her to the Grenadier restaurant to have brunch one day. That's about a kilometer. I think that's about a kilometer walk from High Park, and it's not really doable. Now, if you were walking to the baseball diamond, I believe that's about 500 meters, but it's a big park is what we're trying to get at. So to try and manage without some assistance would be difficult for someone who has a puck in the knee or a sore hip like my mom would. Right.
So does the TTC integrate with the shuttle? Do we know?
Well, this is what my question is, because the way it reads, it sounds like this shuttle is going to replace it once it's up and running, and I'm not sure if that's entirely the intent, right? So if I read it right, sorry, I've got it here, but sorry, I read it actually right there. It says the TTC, okay, maintain High Park bus during weekend and holidays throughout the summer months to provide service in the park until the shuttle is in operation. So does that mean it's going away? And if it's going away, that means if you were to take the subway, to High Park, you would need to walk. Right now, the way the route is designed, you would need to walk into the park to the top of what we call the loop in order to catch this shuttle. So you'd have to pay to use the High Park subway. You'd have to pay again to use the shuttle, and you'd have to walk to get to the shuttle. So that convenience of catching it at High Park subway goes away if 203 goes away.
Okay, so back to the High Park strategy, and we're not debating that today.
Sure.
I think we can both agree that continues to be controversial. But,
correct.
But is the community's expectation though that the porosity barriers of the park are broken down with some kind of utility to get people into the heart of the park and move them about? That's the whole premise of that strategy. So do people feel like this report before us is answering that question or that call?
Well, I'd like to say not entirely is probably the answer, right? If for instance, I mentioned earlier of people that have allotment gardens in the park. If you take away their access to driving in with their own equipment, they basically shut out. They can't use the allotment gardens anymore. If you have a dog that is a senior dog that you drive in with your car today during the week to go for a walk in the park, you wouldn't be able to bring that dog onto a shuttle because it's not a service dog. So the expectation was that somehow this shuttle would solve everybody's accessibility needs in one way or another. At least that's what seems to be what was presented at some of these High Park managing strategy meetings. I don't think that's what's happening. I personally think, I'm not against the shuttle. I personally think it would be a great complement to some of the stuff that we have today. I don't think it should be replacing everything because it really changes the uses of the park and the nature of the park for people that use the park.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Other questions of the deputant? Councillor Cheng?
Thank you for making a heartfelt deputation. I'm just wanted to follow up and ask about what you just mentioned. You don't think that this should be replacing anything. So what do you mean by that? What are the things that should be retained that you think would maintain accessibility?
Right. So today, today we do have access to drive into the park on weekends. Excuse me, during the week. That doesn't exist on weekends, and so that has been an issue with a number of people in the group that I deal with. For instance, there is a seniors hub facility not far from me here. I actually live right across the park, but there's a seniors facility on Bloor, and another one just on the other side of Parkside. And I've been told that weekends used to be family day. And so people would show up and pick up their grandfather, grandmother, and bring them into the park. Even close by, they'd still use a vehicle to do that. And that's been taken away from them for weekends now. I have a scenario where there's it's a soccer team where there's a father that has a son that plays soccer on weekends. They have a sister that is what's the right word? Challenged. So on the weekends, they'd love to bring the family, mom, dad, son, and daughter together, but they can't because they can't bring her in without having availability to a vehicle to leave if they need to right away. So these are the things that pop up. There seem to be a lot of, you could almost call them niche, but they're really not niche when you have 1,000 different scenarios. It's kind of like this is everyday life for people. So when I say replacing, so right now we have a locomotive vehicle that goes into the park on weekends only in the summer. To me, what we're doing is replacing that and maybe providing a little more route within the park based on what I've seen, and then a little more. And if I understand correctly, we're looking to run it the entire week, 7 days, once things get up and running. But it does take away. A lot of people might not want to get onto that shuttle or might not be able to. So I mentioned people that use the allotment gardens. I mentioned people that walk dogs. I imagine a lot of seniors may not be comfortable getting onto a shuttle, even though there's a wheelchair accessible. I don't know if my mom wants to step up to a vehicle, even if to get into a seat and then get out. And then you're reliant on this vehicle to get you out, and it could be at half-hour intervals at the beginning, and ideally at 15 minutes once everything rolls out. But it still doesn't solve entirely the issues here. So when I say I'd like to see it as a complement to some things, a complement to what we do today, would be fantastic. And I do think it should be, that there should be better options for people. But we've taken away options.
I have heard that the current TTC service that is provided is not used. It's not used at capacity. Can you speak to that? Do you know why maybe people aren't using what is provided by the TTC?
I can only, from my observations, I know that there used to be, the 203 used to be a full bus. It used to be a full-size bus that used to go through the park. I didn't see it personally be used a lot. And quite often it would go through empty throughout when it does its circle throughout the park. And my understanding was that the TTC actually discontinued it, but yet last year there was a deal struck to bring a Wheel-Trans type vehicle instead of using a full bus. So they were using a Wheel-Trans type vehicle. It's a little harder to see how many people are in there as it's going by. So I can't assume entirely how much use it had. But just the fact that we're going from a bus-sized vehicle to a smaller vehicle, to me, implies that it's not being used a lot.
And does this implementation, is it linked to then the removal of driving into the park on weekdays?
It will be. I mean, the intention is to go car-free 7 days a week. So yes, it would be entirely tied to replacing a full mode of transportation to get into the park entirely.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cheng. I believe that's all of that's everybody. And we have one more deputy, Michael Longfield from Cycle Toronto. Morning again, Mr. Longfield. You have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Good morning. Thank you again for your time. Just hearing the two previous deputants, and again, thank you both for your comments. I think this is sort of a good example of an item where I think both sides on this issue of High Park, which the councillor noted, there's still some disagreement about what that should look like, aren't necessarily all agree that what's sort of coming forward with this proposal doesn't seem like it's going to meet their needs. I think definitely a lot of the concerns around how the route is servicing the park, what those stops would be, and just helping give people more transportation options through the park. The councillor mentioned that he's injured his knee. I'm personally recovering from a broken leg as well. I'm not able to ride my bike these days, which is an interesting place to be at for a cycling advocate. But I think the rates being proposed for the shuttle actually seem more scaled with like a recreation route rather than a transportation route. Like I was just doing a quick check ahead of this, and actually the up express fare with Presto from Union to the airport is actually less than what it would cost to be on this shuttle bus. And I think I think for anyone that just doesn't seem to make any sense. Finding ways to make this definitely more affordable, definitely better integrated with an existing transit fare, and making sure it's meeting the needs of everyone who has concerns and a lot of stake about what the future of High Park needs to be. And I think, yeah, there's just a lot of consensus from folks who otherwise don't agree on the topic, that just a lot of concerns with what this proposal would be, and ultimately maybe not meet the need of any stakeholder in the park right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the deputant? Seeing none, that's the end of our deputants. Thank you very much, Mr. Longfield. Questions of staff? Councillor Holiday? Okay.
May I go ahead, Chair?
Yep.
Thank you. At the beginning of the report, one of the recommendations is that I'm paraphrasing, that there's the ability to award additional contracts in other parks. But I don't know that there's much else that we know about that. Can someone talk to me about why that's in this report?
Speakers, this recommendation comes following Council's direction that when we procured a shuttle service, it was one that could contemplate other parks that might also be suitable for shuttle services, and allow us to undertake those negotiations, so that when we put the RFP out, it was clear to vendors that we were looking to expand the service to more than one park location, starting with High Park.
I see. So the process here resulted in a single vendor, if I remember reading that correctly. There was some interest, there were some bites, to putting in fishing terms, but one vendor was determined at the end. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. There was only one bid received, but it was reviewed by 33 suppliers with intended participants from 6 other suppliers. We did do a single bid analysis, as we do with all our proposals, but we never heard back as to why they did not propose.
And that vendor is the current supplier in the park, correct?
That is correct.
Do we know what factor having to take on work in other parks would have played in all of this?
Chair, I'll pass that to my colleague, Annalee.
Through the chair, the primary objective was to provide the shuttle service within High Park with the opportunity to expand to future parks at the discretion of Parks, Forestry and Recreation at the time. So the primary objective was this shuttle service in this park.
But it was our discretion to expand it.
That would be through testing the quality of the service with a supplier, and if other parks are identified, that would be the kind of park that we would want to see a shuttle service introduced to. So it provided the flexibility to continue working with the supplier if they could demonstrate good service in High Park.
Is that a risk the vendor needs to manage? If we turn around a year later and say you're doing more?
I don't believe so, because we would not be directing them to do it. It would be a part of a negotiation for future locations to implement a shuttle service.
Okay. If I remember this service in the park today, it's a tractor and I'm going to call it a wagon, but I guess it's a cart with rubber tires. And it's not a hayride, but it's similar, right? Like it's a big thing that gets pulled along. Is it not called an amusement in this report?
Chair, the current trackless train is considered an amusement ride, whereas what we're proposing is a people mover.
Right. So what's different from the amusement to what's being proposed?
Key differences, I would say, are the capacity, the fact that it has accessibility features associated with it. It can travel farther within the park, and essentially met the terms and conditions of the RFP to allow for greater capacity, more frequent travel, and routes that would better accommodate the type of users accessing the destinations within the park.
Break this down for me. So the current one loops around every 30 minutes. You have a ticket. I think it's good for one stop.
The current trackless train does not have the same proposed routes as what we're looking at for the people mover, and essentially was designed more as an interior to the park, child-friendly, train experience, rather than something that's moving more towards getting people into those destinations from more logical entry points, knowing that there's some constraints within the road network of the park.
So the before and after maps are in the report, but tell me again about the timing. I think it's 30 minutes right now is the wait, and then I think it's proposed to go to 15 during the peak season. So that's the big difference, right?
That is one difference, as well as the fact that it would operate rain or shine, as well as the fact that currently we don't have any winter service, and this one is going to pilot a winter service on a different route.
We have any business model testing, like how many people are going to ride this in the winter, in the summer?
Well, we've got the capacity for approximately, we estimated approximately 2 trains or 2 people movers might be operating at the same time. That would be accommodating up to 140 passengers. In the winter, we're looking at a pilot with the vendor to determine what the utility is, and then whether or not that would be something that would continue over time.
Last question.
May I have a last question?
Sure, you can have a last question.
So did we do any, so this report requires the vendor to invest in something fairly significant, which is new equipment, and I think it's electrical. So all of the stuff that goes along with that, that we learned with the ferries. Has anyone done any testing, like business testing or mathematical testing, to know that this is going to work? So we don't know what the ridership is, at least from what I know. And it's so many dollars per ride. Does all of this add up into a viable model?
So through the chair, the primary objective for Parks and Recreation through this RFP was to get the provision of the service. And as it happens, the supplier who has bid on the service knows the market in the park very well. So we will continue to monitor the ability for the vendor to supply the service as per the terms and conditions of the RFP.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Holiday. I'm just going to step back a bit. Outside councillors, I believe Councillor Perks is on the line. Councillor Perks, can you hear us? Councillor Perks? Councillor Perks? Is he muted? He's muted. Councillor Perks, you're muted if you can unmute. He's on the phone. He had trouble with WebEx. We'll go back. Yep, we'll come back. Okay, further questions of the committee of staff? All right, we'll keep going with questions of staff by committee members. Anybody else?
Hello.
There we go. Councillor Perks?
Hello.
Hello, Councillor Perks, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, you have the floor.
Thank you very much.
Questions of staff?
Thank you so much. First question. A number of the questions from councillors and some of the comments from the deputants talked about related issues, things like access to the allotment gardens and so on. We have multiple tools that we're implementing here to try to give a variety of tools. We've worked with people who have the allotment gardens. They have separate access that's keyed. We are adding the additional accessibility parking spaces. We've been working with the various sports leagues about having lockers and storage, correct?
Chair, yes, that is correct.
So this people mover was never envisioned to solve all the accessibility requirements. It's just one tool among many.
Chair, yes, that's a good description. This is not replacing the other strategies that have been implemented in the park to increase access. It will not solve all problems, but it does advance us significantly in terms of addressing the access issues into the park that can't be addressed through the current trackless train model.
Right. Council has taken a decision about the closures that will be on the weekends. We've asked staff to do work towards whether or not we can close it during the week. But what's in front of the committee today is in no way determinative of that long-range discussion, correct?
Chair, yes, that is correct.
So essentially, the only issue in front of the committee today is whether we go ahead and add this feature.
Correct. The scope of the report is meeting council's direction to seek a vendor to provide a people mover service, and we believe that this proposal will meet that objective, and as you note, add an important tool into how the public can access the various destinations within the park.
So it would be fair to say that if we defer or turn down this proposal, all we would achieve is to make the park less accessible.
Chair, yes, the staff would be quite concerned with the deferral that it could put at risk having any service in place for the spring. Our contract with the current vendor ends in December, and we unlikely would have sufficient time to procure another service.
There have been some comments about different ways of organizing fares and schedules and so on. City staff are in negotiations now that we've got a preferred vendor where we can have discussions to try to, get this or that aspect of it, but it's a negotiation across many different issues, correct?
Correct. We would certainly start negotiations immediately upon council's approval. We have flexibility within the contract to address fair pricing through group rates and family discounts. That's the way the agreement's been structured, and we would work to maximize affordability in those discussions with the proponent.
So if my goal was to increase accessibility to the park, I wouldn't support a deferral, but rather what I would do is give staff maybe some opinions about outcomes I might want to get in those negotiations. Not directing them that they must, but saying, consider these kinds of things during negotiations. Is that fair?
Chair, yes, that's very fair.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Perks. We'll bring it back into committee. Other questions of the committee members? Councillor Cheng?
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, questions of staff. I
Yeah,
need more
so
coffee this morning. I'm jet lagged. Sorry, Councillor Cheng, questions of staff.
There's an overlapping route between the TTC and this for a part of the year. There will be, the TTC will do the same route as this new service. And I'm just wondering, has council ever asked TTC to examine how they might go about providing a year-round service across the park?
Chair, I believe we have TTC on the line.
But I'm just asking if council has ever asked TTC to examine this. So we can ask them now in this meeting, but have we ever asked this question for today?
Councillor Cheng, through the chair, at the council approval of the High Park Movement Strategy, council did request the TTC board to investigate the feasibility of improving routing or service frequency of transit service through High Park.
So it's my understanding one of the challenges is the steep slopes and the narrow roads that make it prohibitive for a large bus to navigate. But are there other options in the TTC fleet to operate something like this?
So through the chair, this is Lieu from TTC here. Last year we did operate the service using a community bus, so a Wheel-Trans bus that's outfitted as a community bus. That did provide us more opportunities, and we tested a number of different routings. So that is something we can look at in the future, mindful that our Wheel-Trans resources are more limited. But we are going to maintain our service on the main park roadways this summer using a 40-foot bus.
And what is the ridership of the 40-foot bus in the summer?
So through the past few years, we've consistently seen, of course, depending on the weather of the day, between 100 to 200 people using it per day. And that connects people to High Park Station, which this year is going to be accessible, which is different from previous years. And that elevator is now available at High Park.
So with city support, which would mean additional budget, it would be possible that TTC could provide a network across the park with a Wheel-Trans bus.
We can take a look at that as an option to the chair and provide that costing. Again, the availability of those buses is something that we have concerns about because of the high demand of the Wheel-Trans.
Mm-hmm. But we don't even know about the procurement of this contractor, where they're procuring from. So another question I have is, what kind of consultation has happened with regard to the number of stops and where they're located and the frequency of service? Has there been community engagement on these so that we have more clarity on how this execution will work?
Through the chair, I'll respond to that from Parks and Recreation. Over 10,000 people were engaged through the High Park Movement Strategy, and the engagement included explicit reference to the routes of a shuttle. The actual locations of the shuttle stations can be continued to be confirmed as we advance the service. What's shown in the report are the required routes and key destinations that must be served.
So one of the deputants noted that, the southeast parking lot is omitted from this route, as well as access directly from the TTC station, which would create barriers for some people to be able to get to it. And I'm just wondering why those locations were not included.
Through the chair, I'll start with the parking lot location, which is open 7 days a week to private vehicles. There would not be a location for a turnaround for a vehicle at that location. The walking distance between that parking lot and the closest proposed stop for the shuttle is about 300 meters on flat surface. So that's the first point. And to the second point about connecting with the TTC station, the request to find vehicles that could travel on public rights of way for a shuttle was part of the RFP. The ultimate response from the supplier was for a vehicle that is not rated for traveling on public rights of way. So that's why it must be contained within the park. And it will get as close to Bloor Street as possible, which is a short walk from the High Park station.
So we're basically asking this vendor to take on all the risk, which is why we're not charging them anything, because we really don't know about the business viability of this model. And I'm wondering why there's no calculation of projected revenue or ridership as part of this. I keep hearing, our purpose is to provide the service, but should the service not be supported by projections in order to know if it's even viable?
Last question.
Through the chair, the RFP set out all the data that we have currently related to the visitors annually to High Park, which is approximately 1.5 million people per year. The ultimate response from the supplier took that into consideration. We don't have specific data on ridership because the service that's provided today is very weather dependent and at the kind of direction of the operator based on whether they want to be operating on a daily basis based on weather conditions. So it's not a consistent form of data, but we do have the data around park visitors that was provided through the RFP.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chang, and I believe that's, nope, okay, I believe so. I just wanted to ask, so a couple of the deputants, they asked about performance metrics and staffing levels, and I believe I heard from Mr. Dayton earlier that you don't need council direction on some things, but you're certainly looking at working things like that out as the contract progresses or gets implemented.
Chair, yes, that is correct. Certainly if there are motions around areas of negotiation that as guidance to staff, then we would take those into consideration as we move the discussions forward.
Okay, and then the comment about there was 10,000 people engaged in the public consultation process. How widely was that extended or engaged?
The High Park Movement Strategy was a 2-year study from 2021 to 2023 through, of course, the pandemic, but it was online, it was public meetings, there were pop-ups in the park, and the recommendation for the shuttle came out of that engagement.
Okay, and then in terms of deferring or referring this back, if we referred this back, so my understanding, could you explain the implications of that or the ramifications of that again, Mr. Dayton?
Chair, yes, there are concerns around a deferral. First, the current existing contract, which is already a bridge contract, would require another bridge. It's currently set to expire in December of this year. We don't believe we would have sufficient time to undertake another procurement exercise, and it would put at risk having any service in the park for this season.
Which season? Okay, and then and I guess as Councillor Perks mentioned, I don't get to High Park too often anymore. It's at the other end of the city. But you have many different transportation connections or a network, as I think you called it earlier, that gets people in, about, and around High Park. And if we didn't approve this today, that would leave a gap for residents or people visiting High Park.
Chair, yes. I mean, the comment around substituting, just for clarification, there is no replacement of existing things like Wheel-Trans, TTC, other means by which people are currently accessing the park or storage facilities within the park. All of those tools, as Councillor Perk mentioned, continue to exist. We work with TTC on maximizing coordination and service. We will continue to advocate for that. And I would say that not having this service would certainly leave a gap in what we've been working toward, which is improving access to the park. And we believe there's enough flexibility within the contract itself through those negotiations around things like routes, around things like continued improved coordination with TTC, around fares that, we will work with this vendor or this proponent upon council's approval to solidify those things, understanding those principles of access, affordability, and convenience.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Mr. Dayton. Those are my questions to staff.
Chair, on a point of order, I wanted to clarify something Mr. Dayton said. Could I have a second round? Would the committee consent to that? Be brief.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Thank you. If I could just, Mr. Dayton, if you could expand, you said that there wouldn't be service for the season. Which season?
Apologies, Chair. It would be for the 2026 season. We have coverage for this current peak season.
Okay.
The contract ends in December of this year. The trackless train contract ends.
Okay, and the current season right now, this is an extension of a contract that's been around for a very long time, right?
That's correct.
Could it be extended another season?
Again, we could speak with the proponent about another bridge if they were willing, keeping in mind that in terms of these outcomes, we wouldn't be able to achieve the people mover by the spring of 2026.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Committee.
And I've been told Councillor Perks would like a second round of questions as well. Councillor Perks?
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead. Oh. Councillor Perks?
Hi. Just to follow up on some of those. First of all, there was some issue about whether or not the TTC could do this work. The TTC was given a copy of the tender and asked if they would like to bid, weren't they?
Yes, that's correct. Through the chair, we provided the TTC with a copy of the RFP and also advised them when it was in market.
Thank you. And nothing in the contract you're issuing here would prevent the TTC from operating either its current Wheel-Trans service or the shuttle or the bus that they have operated previously, correct?
Chair, yes, that is correct. There is nothing that restricts their continued ability to operate those services.
Final question. Councillor Holliday was asking about bridging the contract. Two questions in this. First, we have no guarantee that the vendor would accept a bridge now that we've issued this tender. And second, the service that they operate currently is no way similar to what we are considering through this new contract.
Chair, that's correct. As I mentioned before, certainly we don't have any sense of whether the vendor would be interested in extending the current service. And as you note, we would not have a more accessible service, even if the vendor was prepared to extend for another year. It doesn't achieve the goals as set out in Council's direction.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak to the item.
Okay, and I believe...
I have a question as well. Second round.
Councillor Cheng?
Thank you. I just wondered if TTC was able to analyze the feasibility and find a pathway to route a Wheel-Trans bus through the park, and we decided that that was a more affordable for residents, not necessarily for the city, service. What would happen if we entered this contract? Would we be forced to run two parallel services, or if we found a better alternative sometime in the 5-year contract, what would the next steps be? What would be the impact?
Chair, so we don't see this as competing services. So the intention is to have Wheel-Trans operating in parallel with the people mover. And that will continue, and we've had those discussions with TTC. We don't believe Wheel-Trans as a standalone and the only service would be sufficient. Wheel-Trans would also have difficulty traversing some of the road network within the park, so that would not be the solve-all solution. And in terms of the contract's extensions, or at the end of the period, staff would determine whether or not to option any extensions based on the performance of the vendor.
And is it up to the vendor to cover the cost of installing charging infrastructure?
Yes, it is the responsibility of the vendor.
And so they're going to purchase this equipment, which we're not entirely sure will function on our winter roads in the park context. And so that even requires a pilot. So there has to be a financial investment made, and then we're going to pilot, and it may not result in year-round service if that pilot proves that those vehicles cannot do what is possible. So my question is, does the manufacturer have existing cars or buses or whatever you call these vehicles that could be piloted before a purchase is made or even before this contract is signed?
Chair, so just a couple of questions to unpack there. So the charging infrastructure in terms of the vendor's requirements is part of the contract and understood as part of that RFP. So they've determined what charging infrastructure would be required, what fleet vehicles they require, and are prepared to make those investments. I would say that the first electric vehicle that is required out of the fleet must be in place by April of 2026, with the other two becoming electric over time. The vendor understands that. The year-round service is not connected to the electrification piece. That is just, we have never had year-round service in the park. And so we don't know what demand is. And so we've agreed with the vendor that would be the piece that's piloted to determine whether or not there is a demand for winter service. We maintain a pathway that's cleared in the winters, routine park maintenance. That would be the route used, which is going to be the main loop. And there's a shortened number of hours that we would be piloting. What could happen is it's very popular and it brings more people into the park, and it actually expands in terms of the number of hours that would be required as we promote parks as all-season spaces for the public to use. We think this is a very complementary way of allowing people to access the park that they can't currently do during that period of time. So we think this is a big win in terms of an outcome.
And is it a requirement, the winter hours, or if it doesn't prove to be viable from a business sustainability standpoint, are they allowed to say, you know, it's not really worth our effort to do this in the winter?
Chair, we will work with the vendor to ensure that, you know, we understand what the sort of business model is. If there's ways that we can help promote the winter service, we are prepared to do that. We want this to be successful, but ultimately at the end of the winter period, if there is a determination that it wasn't viable to operate during the winter, then they are able to withdraw that service in the future.
So this is my last question, and this is part of, I think, a deputant mentioned this. So the question is this transportation or a ride? Because it's currently being priced closer to a ride than to transportation, at least with the example of the shuttle to the airport. And so I'm just wondering how we're framing this, a people mover. But, you know, when it looks like a train, children really like it. But if it looks like, I don't know what this will look like, will it be more just the functional people moving that we're focused on?
I would answer the question that it's not an amusement park ride, so that in terms of its function, it's functioning more as a transportation aid to get people into park destinations. We obviously want it to be fun, so you know the idea that you're getting on something, it's not going to look like a bus. That you're getting on something that's appropriate to be traveling through the park. Is what we are working from a design and wrap perspective. You know, kids want to get on it and be excited about it, but the fact that it provides a reliable, frequent service to a standard route to get people to and from destinations that they can hop on and hop off through the day is really what Council's direction to us was as part of the High Park Movement Strategy, and we feel we've met that direction through this proposal.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cheng. So we are on to speakers, and I'm...
All right, I have a question, Mr. Chair. I got a question.
Councillor Burnside?
Yeah, thank you. Through you. So just to kind of sort of stack everything up here, if we don't decide, if we defer this, then we have service till the end of the year, but potentially jeopardizing service into early next season. Yeah?
Chair, yes, that's correct.
If we were to go down this proverbial road, I guess, and it doesn't work out, that wouldn't negate us speaking to the TTC and asking them to expand service or whatever the case might be, correct?
Chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay. And if we have two options, I know they're not mutually exclusive, but requesting the TTC where we have a TTC board that does not necessarily answer to council, we can only request things, or a situation where we're awarding a contract, which situation would we have more ability to, I'll say, influence the level of service we get in the park?
Through the chair, I think your point that there are two separate services is important to take into consideration. The topography of the park is very, very dynamic, and only the service that has been proposed to the shuttle is able to navigate that. So in that sense, Parks and Recreation have more control over that. We can always work with the TTC to ensure that the service they're providing is maximizing the available roads within the park that are navigable to TTC bus vehicles.
Right, but that kind of answers my question, but to sort of re-articulate it, the TTC makes that final decision about the level of service they offer, don't they? We can't say, hey, increase it when they say, no, the numbers don't warrant it, or whatever the case might be. We work with them, and I know they work well with us, but we don't actually have the ability to dictate what's going on, or necessarily make changes that we think are in the best interests of the park users.
Chair, that's correct. We have more control over the contract that council awards, which would be this one in terms of some of the areas of negotiation, right, than TTC.
Yeah, thank you. That's it. That's all. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting, but I know it's gone on for a while, so thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Councillor Burnside. I believe now we're on to speakers. Councillor Perks is on the line still. We lost Councillor Perks. Okay, we'll start. Councillor Holiday.
Thanks, Chair. I have two motions. The first is to refer the item back to the General Manager with some additional work requests. I'll note to my colleagues, if I've missed something, feel free to make a friendly amendment. My second motion, should this not pass, and we consider the recommendations before us, would be to strike recommendation number 2, which allows for the service to be expanded in other parks. I'll speak about the first one. So language is important, and you may argue with me this is semantics, but we currently have an amusement in the park. It says so in the report. And this report is for the operation and maintenance of a passenger transportation shuttle service for High Park. And that's important. So you can examine what is there today. There's pictures of it online, but it's a trolley that rotates around the park every 30 minutes. If I have this right, you pay for a ticket. I don't know what the price is offhand, $5, $6, $7, $8. And it carries whatever number of people it carries. We don't know. And the question is, with council's decision to close external vehicular traffic substantially to High Park, does this then fill the promised gap of getting people from the edges of the park into the center of the park where the the attractions, the things that people visit, whether it's a ball diamond, a pool, courts, gardens, a labyrinth, Colburn Lodge, come back to Colburn Lodge actually, and even linking something like a parking lot that has been preserved for people to be able to park there, I guess 300 meters apart. And so I read this report and I looked at, what's the difference between what's there today? Well, there's a technology change. It's going to go from what I understand to be a tractor, which is made to look like a train, into something that's a little bit different in terms of technology, and it's apparently electrical. In addition to that, maybe some extra seating on that. But okay, it's something that pulls people along. And then you look at the frequency. Well, it's going to be 30 minutes. And then on peak season, it'll be 15. So sounds like they're going to add another device, because I think there's one right now. So there'll be a second one during peak season. And they modified the route. But again, if you look at the maps, you find that the first one does a loop, and this one now does 2 loops. inside the park. I'm not sure that is radically different. So I don't know, I keep seeing an amusement here, but that's my opinion. But more importantly, we had 3 people come from the public, different viewpoints, but they raised concerns about this. And I don't think I heard from them that they were resoundingly satisfied with what has been proposed. And some of those folks live in the neighborhood, and they're thinking about the porosity of this park and the accessibility of it. So I'm not feeling comfortable with this solution because I think it's really important. Council made a decision to implement this high park strategy. And this is the solution that we have before us, and I'm not satisfied with it. So I'd like to send it back for more work. I understand the apprehension of others to say, what'll happen if we don't get this done? Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the 80s or at least the 90s, this current operator has been running this piece of equipment, and I guess there's a risk that we couldn't reach a bridge contract, but seem to have lasted this long. So if this takes a few more months to get it right, let's get it right. The last thing I'll say, and back to Colburn Lodge, if you look up the original history of this park, it was given out to people. And one of the key tenets is that it would be accessible by all. I really have a difficulty here where there is a sticker price of $6, $7, $8 and multiply that by several things for a family. And it all takes is me. Seriously, I got hit by a hockey puck on the weekend, and it really hurt. And it just takes one person of that group then to sort of necessitate the group to take one of these things to get around to enjoy the park. I think we should have some serious pause on that if we're going to require people to pay a very large amount of money to go in and access this park for very practical reasons. And that all stems back to a council decision. And the council decision was to shut down those routes for the cars to go in. Never mind all of the baseball leagues and the different things that go on inside that park, all the sports, all the wonderful things that people do and enjoy it as a family. So I think this needs more work. Failing that, again, Mr. Chair, I'm really uncomfortable with the option of expanding this into other parks because of the pieces that I think we need more information on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Holyday. Questions so we have a referral motion before us. Does anybody have any questions of the mover on his referral motion? Seeing none. So, Councillor Holyday, I just wanted to ask, so a number of things that you mentioned in your report, staff, when I was asking questions of the Executive Director of Parks, he said a number of things that they were looking at incorporating into the work as it starts. And then I guess my second part of the question, staff were quite clear that if we referred this back to them for more work, that there would be a gap in the service that we would provide to the people of the park because they don't think the current service provider of the wagon and tractor is going to continue.
So I didn't hear that the current wagon and the tractor aren't going to continue. And to answer that question, if they've been around for several decades, I suppose there's a risk that they wouldn't agree to a bridge contract, but I guess the committee is going to have to weigh that out about how likely that is. But what are we doing without? I'm simply suggesting that if we needed to, we would go, and that's if this couldn't get fixed by next year. We would maintain the status quo a little longer. And my point is, let's get it right. Let's do the complete service that we've heard several people object to today. And so the first point in the motion that I have is to look at what really is last mile transportation. And I think what I tried to say in my speech was that I'm not seeing this very far away from the current amusement that's in the park. And then some of the other pieces have to do with things like integration to the TTC, accessibility. I really want to understand the business model. Somebody's going to have to outlay big dollars to go into an electric system. And, do we have a comfort that that is actually going to work? I hope we can get into some of those details. I'm very skeptical on this. And again, the system that's there now, it's been functioning for a very, very long time. It's great. No one's saying that there's something wrong with that. It's just where this is headed under the umbrella of transportation shuttle service is something different. And I think this committee needs to turn its mind to what that actually is.
Okay, and I guess what I heard Councillor Holyday when asked about, you know, if we referred this back to staff, that staff clearly said that there would be a break in service, that they were pretty close to absolutely certain that there wouldn't be a bridge. So you're moving a motion saying, well, you hope that won't happen, and staff are saying it won't happen.
I'm sorry, I'll differ, Mr. Chair. I didn't hear an absolute that it was not possible to have we're currently in a bridge. So I'm waiting for someone to say that it is impossible that there will be nothing. Is it true that once the season wraps up, that there wouldn't be winter service? Well, there wasn't winter service anyways.
Okay.
So if that's the gap they're talking about, like, well, how farther are we back than where we were before?
Okay, and then my other question, Councillor, so my understanding, you're asking about it integrated with the TTC Transit Commission, and you know, we heard from Lawrence Lieu from the TTC, they're running a parallel service. Staff have said that there will be opportunities to enhance that service if it's needed, that just running what's before us today is going to negatively impact or stop TTC from enhancing their service, correct?
So let's find out more about how that's going to work. If you go on the TTC's website, at least I checked this morning, the temporary shuttle service, the seasonal route in Hyde Park, I think it's 203, is not even listed because it's not started yet. I think it's June 22nd is when it's starting. So, you know, I couldn't even see the frequency of that and how it would work and how it could match up to this particular service. So I think there's more work to be done there is the point I'm making.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then I believe we've reconnected with Councillor Perks. All right, so Councillor Perks, I don't know what happened, dropped off for our end or his end. So I'm gonna allow Councillor Perks to be heard before we deal with the referral motion.
So, Mr. Chair, just a point of order.
Yep.
It's a point of order. I have a few questions for Councillor Holyday. So after Councillor Perks speaks, I may then ask questions of Councillor Holyday.
Sorry, you want to ask questions of Councillor Holyday's referral motion?
In essence, yes.
Okay, if you want to go ahead and then we'll hear from Councillor Perks.
I want to make sure it's whatever is convenient for you. Thank you. So through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Holyday. Councillor Holyday, is there, and by the way, I'm leaning towards supporting your referral. So I'm asking you these questions so in order to have a broader sense of understanding. Pardon me? That's leading? Sorry, in order to have a broader sense of understanding, because I could change my mind, in essence, right? So is there the possibility or the feasibility that potentially the issues around cost and expanding the service and so on, in addition to that with respect to community consultation and so on, is there a possibility that those things could be done instead of creating a deferral or referral in order to be able to ensure that for this matter going to council, be able to done prior to the item getting to council as such?
So the motion doesn't prescribe specifically the mechanics in dealing with the current vendor. I have no idea what is achievable from the work that has been done by staff and where this could go. I do believe there are some very fundamental gaps that I heard today from the speakers that need to get filled. And so I thought about, you know, what are the different ways we can deal with this matter here?
Right.
And I felt that a referral gave staff the most latitude to get back in under the hood and figure out what it is that needs to be done. Whether they come back with the report next month, I don't know. Might be a little wishful.
Right.
One thing I did add in there, though, is I thought there was merit in having some additional consultation because there were some really good ideas that came out today. You know, it was very specifically about the parking lot down in the corner. So if that is the one place where you might have an accessible parking pass that you can park on the park, and it is 300 meters away from the shuttle, I think that's worth thinking about. right? So I think there's more work there. The cost is one thing, you know, that's one specific negotiating point, I guess. You know, I'd like to see a little more on a business model that could be probably covered off in a report. But I think really is making sure that council is really comfortable that we've got something here that answers the question as to what last mile transportation is. Because I do know that it seems to suggest that this could be put in other parks. So I think we should get it right.
Got you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions of the mover of the referral? Seeing none, we will hear from Councillor Perks.
Okay.
Councillor Perks?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
No. Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Members, you're being asked to make a very simple decision. Do you want to do something that makes High Park more accessible or not? All the other stuff is fog. Right now, there is a service. It runs only in good weather, only through part of the park, only in certain times of years, and isn't compatible with people who have accessibility needs. This is a proposal to run something that will go more frequently, for more of the year, is accessible, and will provide better service. You have no guarantee that by deferring this, you get anything better. If one of the things worth remembering is that staff will be monitoring the implementation, and if we learn some lessons during the first year of operation, we can make it better still. You've also heard that the TTC, which operates not one but two parallel services, Wheel-Trans service and the shuttle bus, can, if they choose, make a decision to continue to operate that on top of this service. It's very simple, very, very simple. You can vote today to make High Park more accessible than it is right now, or you can vote to defer and make sure that it doesn't have any kind of an improvement. You've also heard this is one of many things that we're doing. A whole lot of people have a whole lot of different needs. City staff have been working with the sports leagues about how to support their needs separately. They've worked with the people in the allotment gardens about how to support their needs separately. The parking lot that Councillor Holliday talks about is open 7 days a week, even on the days when cars can't get in. The fact that it isn't served by this doesn't mean anything in terms of whether or not this particular addition will be an improvement. If we want to look at how to get connections down to that parking lot, that's another piece of work we can do. But saying we won't make this improvement because it doesn't solve every single problem says that you don't want to make improvements. The improvements come from a variety. I think one of the deputants said it. There are 100 different cases, 100 different circumstances. Each of them requires different strategies. We can be helpful here and do something which the community has asked us to do. Thousands of people have asked us to do this. Or you can say, do nothing. Pretty simple choice, I think. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Perks. Sorry, Councillor Cheng, you have questions on the referral?
No, I actually am working with staff on a motion, but I think it's still being worked on. Can we hold this item down and come back to it?
Is she working on a motion? Sorry, Councillor, have you sent it to staff?
Yeah, staff have been working on it for the last hour, I think. We've been working on it, but it's almost there, I think. But I think they just need a little more time.
Well, the clerk is saying to me that they have a motion from you that's complete, Matthew? That it's complete. Do you have something else you're sending in?
Yes, it's two additional pieces, yes.
Okay, they don't have that yet. You don't have it yet?
No, because other staff are working on it, including park staff, so.
Yep. Yep. Okay, so why don't we finish with the referral debate? Does anybody want to speak to the referral? Councillor Chang, did you want to speak to the referral?
No, I think that I want to save my speaking for when I move my motions. And I would like my motions to be considered alongside the referral.
That's can't be done. You can move a motion to amend the referral motion, Councillor Chang?
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand how this works. So we're going to vote on referral, and then if it passes, then nothing can, so I'd have to amend the referral with whatever I'm working on.
That is one option, or
yeah.
we would speak to the referral. If the referral passes, it gets referred to staff. If it doesn't pass, then we continue the debate on this item.
Got it. I still need time because I feel like my motions could either be an amendment to the referral or they could be an amendment to the motion. So I'd like both options, please.
Okay.
I will ask a question of the mover of the referral, please.
Okay, and sorry, Councillor Chang, so just to clarify, you can amend Councillor Holiday's motion for the referral if you're adding to his list of conditions for the referral.
Yes.
Okay. Good. And now you have questions of Councillor Holiday on the referral.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Holiday, do you have a report back or timeline that you would like to see staff report back on next steps?
I did not. I did suggest work for them to do, so I didn't fix a date. If you want to add a date, you're welcome to that, but I'd like them the opportunity to come back as early or as late as they need to get this done right. I'm sure they're quite motivated to come back as soon as they can.
And are you thinking that the vendor would be open to extending their current contract if we refer this?
I couldn't possibly know what the vendor's thinking, but given that the vendor has been around for many, many decades and we're currently in a bridge, I guess that's something that the council needs to think about. Excuse me, the committee would have to think about whether or not is likely or unlikely.
Great, thank you. Those are all my questions. I still need some time because I need to reframe my motions in order to make them amendments to the referral. So I just need a little more time. So if we can hold this down and come back to it.
Okay, is the committee fine with that? Yep, okay, we'll hold it down and go to the next item. So our next item is number 3, GG 21.3, amendment to non-competitive contract 470-23030 with a Supreme Nursing and Home Care Services Incorporated for nursing services at various shelter locations, held by Councillor Holiday. Councillor Holiday, questions of staff?
Thank you, Chair. So this extends a current contract which has been in place for some period of time. If I've got it right, $100,000, is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
So the report, I guess, alludes that there would be a procurement process in the future to secure a new vendor. Do I understand that correct?
That is correct. We anticipate that by the fourth quarter of this year.
So why did we find ourselves in a circumstance that we need to extend the volume of a contract, the volume or amount of contract, when a future contract is planned? I thought we did procurement planning so that there were no gaps.
Through the chair, initially, council, we are considering letting this contract run down and simply using our existing staff to cover all of the shifts and the work. In review, unfortunately, a little bit later than we anticipated, it was determined that it would be beneficial to have this in place just as an insurance policy. We do not use this contract very often. Last year, we used it for covering less than 2% of our overall shifts when we had unexpected people leave the organization.
Okay, so this is important. So you currently have capacity to deliver some of this work on your own. I'm hearing that. I think that's new for me to know.
Yes, we actually deliver the vast bulk of this service through direct staff, and we simply use this contract in order to cover off unexpected staff losses and in order to ensure continuity of service to clients.
So with respect to continuity of services, do I understand what you've told me correctly to say that you were not contemplating a new vendor in the future, but somewhere along the lines that direction changed to secure a new vendor, and so you had to fill the gap between the time of that decision and the decision at which point you could have a vendor in place through the traditional competitive procurement process?
That is correct, Councillor.
Okay, very helpful. I wish these things were in the reports, and if I missed it, I apologize.
Hello?
Thank you.
Okay, other questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, speakers, Councillor Holyday? Moving the recommendations? All in favor of the recommendations on GG 21.3? That carries. Our next item is GG 21.4, amendment to blanket contract number 47056662 to Avron Foods Limited for supply and delivery of snack foods for the after-school recreation care program and CampTO child nutrition programs for park and recreation, held by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson, questions of staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Through you to staff, the amendment with respect to this contract is to add additional capacity of children to be provided with snacks.
Chair, yes, that is correct.
Thank you very much for that. And the additional number of times for providing snacks, that's also changing as well. It's the mid-morning snacks.
Chair, the amendment supports the additional children at the after-school recreation and care program, as well as providing a mid-morning snack at our camp locations.
Right. So the initial number of children that were to be serviced by the initial contract was 56,000?
Chair, no, so the existing contract approved by council was for the after-school recreation and care program. When council approved the budget and we received funding to implement a summer camp nutrition program and expand the after-school recreation and care program, we added 56,000 participants at 90 City of Toronto camp locations. That is the bulk of what this contract amendment is intended to support.
So what is the current number? It's because based on what I've just heard you say, and maybe it wasn't clear to me, but I just want to make sure I clarify. So 56,000, is that an additional to the number of children that you're already servicing, and what is that number?
Chair, yes, so currently the after-school recreation and care program supports approximately 1,600 children per day at approximately 51 locations.
Okay.
This is in addition to that, so we'd be looking at 90 camp locations in the summer months, that would accommodate approximately 56,000 children served.
Oh, okay. So the additional 200 as part of the, as the report says here, it's a care program to 200 additional children.
Correct. So that would bring the after-school recreation and care program from 1,600 to 1,800,
okay,
which is the number of children we were funded to serve through the budget, plus the camps.
And that's the reason for the amendment?
Correct.
Okay, got you. With respect to the snacks, how are they selected? I mean, it's not clear to me based on the report here. I can't tell. Is it the sugary snacks that we don't want children to have? Is it other types of wholesome, nutritional? I know it says nutritional in the report here, but it's not clear to me what the children, what we're providing to the children. So my question is, oh, first of all, that's one question, but component part two to the question is, do we work with Toronto Public Health in terms of determining the type of nutritional food items that we provide to the children through these programs?
Chair, yes, to answer both questions, the snacks will be nutritious. That was absolutely clear in the mayor's direction, as they are for the after-school recreation and care program. So we would be modeling after that snack program, which is quite successful. And we will follow Canada Food Guide and work with Toronto Public Health in terms of what the menu is.
So for the mid-morning snacks, will they get Cheerios? Will they get Rice Krispies? Will they get Rice Krispie squares? And what are the types of things?
Chair, the last thing we want is children hyped up on sugar. So
I agree with you.
We will be definitely looking to provide them with more healthy options, vegetables, fruit, that sort of thing.
And I'm just, I guess my final question is that, is it possible that in future, these types of report, we could have those types of information incorporated in it? I may have misread and not have read it if it's there, but I didn't notice it, because if I had, perhaps I wouldn't have asked some of these questions, but I just wanted clarification.
Chair, that's fair feedback, and we can absolutely incorporate those kinds of details into future reports.
Thank you very much. Those are all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Holiday, questions of staff?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to understand the ARC program, the after-school recreation care. Is that covered by the, get the name right, is that the Child Care and Early Years Act?
Chair, the program is covered under the Early Childhood Education Act in terms of our ability to operate the program for the number of hours that we do. The provision of SNAC was a requirement of the provincial after-school funding that we receive for the program. When we expanded the program to the additional 200 children, this provides us the funding that we need to carry, our portion of the funding that we need to carry it to all of the children served.
I thought that the schools had to provide after-school care.
That's a complicated question. The schools are mandated to survey parents on their before and after school care needs. Where a school community has determined they require before and after school care, that would then be usually provided to the child care community, whether nonprofit or commercial, to deliver that service. Our program is limited to after school, and the locations that we are in are because those parent communities selected an after school care program, and the city was well suited to deliver it.
I'm sorry, if you could just repeat that. The parents selected, or they didn't select an after-school care program? They turned it down?
So, Chair, the ARC has been running for years, and in many of the locations, we've had continuity of service. So the changes to the after-school, the Early Childhood Education Act have come into effect much later. So where ARC is currently located, where an expansion might be considered, would be following discussions with those parent communities where our program is deemed more appropriate. I will say we only have filled a gap where it's been determined a need. because there isn't a childcare provider in providing that service in the school.
And this is how I want to round it out. For historical reasons, previous council decisions, I guess by the sounds of it is a fact, we're providing childcare through recreation.
Through the chair, I would call it, not unlike summer day camp, a care-based program is how we define it, which means that we are covering a period of time where parents are unable to, provide care for their children. But that is not indifferent than a summer day camp. Some parents use it for enrichment. Some parents use it for care opportunities or a combination thereof. The type of programming that we're delivering in the after-school recreation and care program meets the provincial after-school grant. It is recreational in nature, and certainly that is the mandate of our division.
And it's $3 and change a day, right?
Approximately.
Like and does it run for the recreation calendar sessions, or does it run for the entire school year?
Chair, it runs through the entire school year.
Does it run through the summer?
I didn't hear the question, sorry.
Does it run through the summer?
Oh, no, we move into our summer camp delivery in the summer.
Okay. And so what happens when somebody ages out of the ARC program? Because after-school programs, I think, are up to grade 6.
Chair, the after-school recreation and care program supports children aged 6 to 12. Once they age out, as you say, we certainly offer a whole series of youth programs at community centers that those young folks can access.
And the snacks under this report are not in that other program, it's under the ARC.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Other questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, speakers, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I mean, I like to move this, and I'm very proud to move this. I'm supportive of the mayor's objective to amend and expand the program and help our young people. And Mr. Dayton, who I have no questions about his obviously commitment to this program and other programs that he and his amazing team lead and so on. So I'm happy. I just needed to have some clarification. And I would just simply say that, on some of these reports, as a newer member of this committee, it really is helpful to have some more detail. I had to look up the name of the company that was actually providing the service. I've not heard, I'd never heard of them before and so on, and in all the reports I've seen, and obviously I have no concerns or questions about that. It's just that I wanted to ensure that the snacks that were being provided to our young people and so on are such that they're wholesome and nutritional and so on. And I've heard the term nutritional used in snacks that are providing to kids in varying places, not so much in some of our programs, but I see them all to be sugary snacks. I'm told they're nutritional, but they're not, obviously, and that's part of the reason that prompted me to really even have an interest in terms of asking this. I'm happy with the investment that we're making in our children, and in fact, our young people. We need to be making more, and having healthy snacks and healthy products for our young people obviously helps their brains, helps their development, and helping them to obviously to gravitate and obviously taking their rightful place in our society as we move ahead. They learn better, they're able to adjust and incorporate positive activities and interaction with each other and so on. So this is all very good. So Avron Food Limited, I had not heard of them. I did Google them and I did look at their programs and their offering. And so I'm satisfied with respect to what has been communicated vis-a-vis my questions of Mr. Dayton. And I'm happy to move this report. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Sorry, Councillor Holiday, you speak? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to oppose this. That's for very philosophical reasons. I've talked about it at council before. A shout out to parks and recreation. I have 3 kids. They had a lot of joy in their life growing up, going to various recreation programs and camps. I think the city does a wonderful job. So I have experience in this. I think if you talk to them, they tell you a lot of nice things about it as well. But these hands have helped pack a lot of lunches and snacks. I don't know why the government would possibly be required to feed my children. And there are many people in the same position of me that can and should pack a proper set of lunch and snack for their kids. And those kids also should be responsible in, putting them together and helping set the menu and, being participants. So I don't believe that the response is to provide a government meal. So I'm just not going to support this. I'd rather take the money for this and find those families that really do need the help and help them. But feeding everybody just as a baseline is, I don't think, a wise and efficient approach. And I think it teaches some kids that they should just rely on others. And I don't philosophically agree with that. So I'm going to oppose this on that basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Other speakers on this item? Seeing none. So I just want to say, I'm fully supportive of the recommendations in this report as a councillor that has 5 of the, I believe, 38 neighborhood improvement areas in my ward. I see firsthand, anytime I'm out and about in my community, the positive impact that this program plays on for families, and in particular children that need a healthy snack. I'm a strong supporter of the breakfast program. Children don't need to be going to school hungry. They don't learn when they're hungry. They don't participate well with others, whether it's in school or a camp program or a recreation program. So I'm fully supportive of this, and we'll be supporting it. Thank you. So we have the recommendations by Councillor Thompson, moved by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? Opposed?
Chair, I'm opposed.
Sorry?
I'm opposed. You don't have to record the vote. I just want to say.
And that item passes. All in favor? Sorry, that item passes. Our next item is...
Actually...
Sorry, extend the meeting?
Can we do a recorded vote on that one?
You want a recorded vote?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're having a recorded vote on the recommendations of GG 21.4. All in favor? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Burnside, Councillor Chang, opposed, Councillor Holiday, and that item passes. So now we have, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 7 items left. I don't know what the will of the committee is to extend and finish, or come back after lunch. Okay, so I'm moving a motion to extend the meeting to finish the agenda. All right, so our next item is GG 21.5. Sorry, didn't I say all in favor? I thought I did. That carries. GG 21.5, amendment to non-competitive purchase order number 605-2384 with Onyx Enterprise Solutions Limited for wiring, cabling, and hardware for the provision of wireless internet services at various shelter locations, held by Councillor Holiday. Councillor Holiday, questions of staff?
Yeah, I just wondered if staff could expand a little bit on how the system works. So if I understand this correctly, this is a vendor related to hardware provisioning, and then I think I read in that there's a utility service provider for the actual internet. Do I understand that right?
Through the chair, you are correct. We use Rogers as the internet provider, and this is the hardware provider on Onyx.
So what's the complete picture then for all of the internet services? I think this was $200,000.
I don't have that information in front of me, Councillor. I can get that for you. I'm not exactly sure what the costs are for the Rogers services for non-staff.
Okay, so I do note that this started out as something less than $10,000, and it has now moved from $10,000 to $200,000 over a couple of years. What changed?
Councillor, in response to an coroner's inquest and to Mr. Faulkner's death, there was a recommendation that we provide wireless Wi-Fi services to homeless and individuals using our shelter system. And this is in response to that. And so we continue to build out on that recommendation from the jury.
Respectfully, Mr. Chair, I didn't really see the explanation of how we went from $9,000 to $200,000. What changed that would result in such a price change?
The change has been the expansion across the system, and we started off initially in very local and built out the system over time and over different locations.
Help me with that. Was it, you started with one shelter and went to all the others, or what does that mean?
Yeah, it was in, so through you, Mr. Chair, this was probably before my time with shelters, but my understanding has been that it started in a common area in one shelter and has been built out since then to multiple shelters. And what we're proposing here is to build it out throughout the shelters, not just in common areas.
I see. Okay, so instead of just the common areas, you're covering the shelter space. Okay. Is this the end of the expansion? Maybe to, and if I just put my question around that, right? We've seen as a committee, this has gone from less than $10,000 to $200,000. How much further does it go?
Through you, Chair, this current ask contemplates not only expanding to throughout the shelter systems in 7 different locations, but also potential of new shelters that could be brought in the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
And of course, beyond that, as you know, we have a 10-year infrastructure strategy that will bring, that looks at adding additional shelters. So I can't say that this will be the end of it as we bring new shelters online.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday. Other questions of staff on this item? Seeing none. Speakers? Councillor Holiday? Councillor Holiday, do you want to move the recommendations? All right, I will move the recommendations. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is GG 21.6, award of document 46078511677 to Neptune Technology Group Canada for supply and delivery of water meters and related appurtenances. I think I got that right, Lieu. Held by Councillor Cheng. Questions of staff? Councillor Cheng.
Thank you. Through the chair, we know that we have encountered some difficulties with water meters that were installed across our city, and people have had to do their own reporting to get replacements before replacement is available. And I'm wondering, how does this contract relate to that situation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the 2 contracts are not related, except for the fact that we use Neptune meters throughout the city. So Neptune meters is our standard that was procured. This contract is designed to provide us access to meters for repair and maintenance purposes, for new meters when new homes are being built. So it's just to access the meter component. Where we were having trouble, as we reported previously to council, was with meter transmission units, which is a different type of product, and it's electronic products, and it's supplied by a different contractor or supplier, Alclara. And so this is unrelated to that issue.
So are there water meters that have built-in transmission capability?
Through the chair, no, the meter unit is separate, and then you wire the meter to a transmission unit. So the transmission unit is a separate device, and that's the issue that we're dealing with, is that separate communications device, not the actual water meter.
So even with these new water meters that we're going to be working with Neptune on, they will have to get this transmission unit installed as well?
Yeah, that's correct. We would be installing the existing MTU if it's still working, or they would get new ones. This is just to give us the ability to procure meters if we find that a homeowner, there's a deficient meter or we need new meters. That's all it is, a supply contract.
And these new meters that we would be installing, do they have any smart technology embedded in them, or is that something that has to be additional? So, for example, you know, I've heard where some buildings or even cities, you have apps where you can see your usage in real time, and that helps you incentivize your action, and maybe you can even opt into push notifications to alert you're using more water than you would, normally use. Is that capability possible with these water meters?
Through the chair, yes, these water meters have that. They'd record the consumption. It is the actual communication system, though, that would give you what you just described. So the meter transmission units have to be working properly and feeding back to a software product. That's subject to another report that we hope to have in front of council about the next generation strategy on replacing the systems that we have. And we hope to have that in front of council before your summer break this year.
Great, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Members on this item? No. Speakers? Councillor Cheng, you held the item?
Yes, I was very encouraged to hear that there will be a report on the transmission units. I think it's good that we can use innovation technology to help people reduce their water usage, and the more we're able to get the information out of the units, the better I think we can change people's behavior. So, but these are new water meters, and I support the staff report.
Okay.
So I'll move it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cheng's moving the recommendations in number 6. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is GG 21.14, non-competitive bridge contract with Acklands-Grainger Incorporated for the supply and delivery of various industrial supplies, equipment, and services for various City of Toronto divisions, held by Councillor Holyday. Councillor Holyday, questions of staff?
Thanks, Chair. It's a brief one on similar lines to the other procurement that I asked about, which was just how do we get ourselves in a circumstance where we have to extend a contract when we had planned for a procurement process?
Through the chair, this is actually an interesting example. We've been reviewing all of our corporate contracts recently to see about what model we want to follow going forward to ensure a more consistent approach when it comes to, again, these types of procurements when it is citywide. And this is one of those examples where after review, so the way a corporate contract works currently, the division with the biggest spend takes on the lead, which is actually quite onerous for them and can be a bit confusing when other divisions are participating. So this is one of those instances where after reviewing the model we've been using, we want to bring that in-house to PMMD to take the lead. So this did cause a bit of delay in the original plan, but we are on track currently for reissuance and as well as, again, revamping the model overall when we're dealing with corporate contracts.
So it may not have gone that way, but is the intent to try and do these types of changes before the contract expires?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so that just, the timing is the timing in this circumstance, I guess.
Correct. Timing is unfortunate. Again, it's been something in the works over the past couple of years, and this just came through, unfortunately, on bad timing, but we are working on establishing a proper process to go forward for all of our corporate procurements.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Holyday. Councillor Holyday is moving the recommendations in number 14. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is GG 21.18, Payments Modernization Framework, held by Councillor Cheng. Councillor Cheng, questions of staff?
I'd like to move staff recommendations and just speak briefly to it.
Anybody else have any questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, Councillor Cheng to speak.
Thank you. I had some very good meetings with this division and Sonia Bryan and her team. I think what I really wanted to flag is that our city needs a vision, a true north compass of how we want our residents to engage with our city from a digital component. And that extends beyond just payment. And how that vision should lead the way before we decide the payment method that we choose, because the greater vision of engaging our residents, for example, we had a struggle with vacant home tax last year, and if we had a City of Toronto app that allowed push notifications, we wouldn't have to spend so much money on mailing people. People could opt into notifications and make payments directly on their phone. And so I hope, and I have heard that we are working towards that. And so we need to establish what is that bigger vision of how do our residents engage with our city through a digital portal that can facilitate all the many ways that impact our lives. And from that vision is how we should land and how those payments should be coordinated. So I think that both of these things are happening concurrently, and we need the lead to be what is the greater vision. And so I look forward to the development of that, because I think there's so much technology out there that we can leverage to make life easier for our residents as well as for our staff. So thank you for this report, and I look forward to its further development.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chang's moving the recommendations in number 18. All in favor? That carries. Number 19, GG 21.19, overview of security practices for employment, access card photos. Does anybody have any questions of staff? Seeing none. I just had one after all of the work on this. I'm just trying to understand, so an employee's badge photo, what's the standard for renewing that or replacing that photo? Because I understand, like I just had my security guard card replaced because it wasn't functioning. I appreciate staff that replaced the card, but they used a photo of myself that's 25 years old. So I'm just, which I don't mind, it keeps me younger, but I'm just trying to understand what is there an industry standard for how often a photo should be updated or is updated?
Through the chair, there is not an industry standard. You do look like you were 25 years ago.
Thank you. My wife would differ. My father-in-law would differ.
We do actually have a new access card policy coming out in the fall. It will mandate to a degree a new timeline that's based upon best practices and benchmarking. We didn't have one previously. It was really, after 10 years or if the individual's photo had substantially changed is what happened. So in the new one, all employees will, except if they've had a picture within 5 years, will take a new picture. So essentially, in the new year, the employee database will be updated to 5 years.
Okay, all right, thank you. Seeing none, I'm moving the receipt of the report. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is GG 21.20, response to requests for targeted 311 enhancements, held by Councillor Chang. Councillor Chang, questions of staff?
Sorry, can you repeat which item we're on?
We're on number 20, which you held.
Yes, again, I just want to speak very briefly to this, and I will move staff recommendations. So I'm really pleased to see that there will be a report in the third quarter of 2025 on the feasibility of account functionality in the 311 app. I think that there's still a lot of improvements on the app that can be made, and this would grow a great deal. I don't know about my fellow councillor colleagues, but I go for a walk in the neighborhood and I easily could log in to 311. It's very hard to take a walk actually with your eyes wide open. And so having account capability would mean that you could log in 311 requests without having to always fill in your name and address over and over again. And you could see all the requests that you've made in one place. So I look forward to that report, and I think it will really help in terms of the user friendliness of the app and in terms of greater accountabilities, because people could see how their requests are tracking through the system. So I support this work and I look forward to the further improvement of 311. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Chang. Councillor Chang's moving the recommendations. And sorry, which one were we just? 19. Sorry, 20. GG 21.20, response to a request for targeted 311 enhancements. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is our new added item, GG 21.22, nominal sublease agreement with the Malvern Family Resource Center, which I know former Deputy Mayor McKelvey was working very diligently at and would be here supporting it if circumstances hadn't changed. So all in favor of the recommendations? And that
Sorry, I have a
carries.
quick question of staff.
Sure. Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Councillor Chang.
This is a great report, and it's great that this is happening. And many of us have hydro fields in our wards. And I would just like asking staff to share, how did this get accomplished? How long did it take? And how did we come to this agreement with Toronto Hydro or Ontario Hydro?
Thank you for the question, and to you, Mr. Chair. I don't have the details on the background, Councillor, but happy to get that to you before council.
Great, thank you, because I think we'd love to leverage these precious swaths of green that we have across our city. That's all my questions. Happy to move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Chang. All in favor of the recommendations on this item?
Recorded vote just for
Former Deputy Mayor, Councillor McKelvey? Sure. All in favor of this report? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Holladay, Councillor Chang, Councillor Burnside, and that's unanimous. And that passes. We're now back to number 9. Matthew, where were we? We have a referral debate. Would anybody like to speak to the referral? Councillor Chang, I believe you had a friendly amendment to the referral?
Actually, I have an amendment to the motion, not to the referral. I've two paths have diverged,
okay.
And so I won't be amending the referral.
Okay. So we're voting on the referral. So we have the referral motion in front of us by Councillor Holladay. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Burnside, I need your vote in favor of or opposed to the referral?
What did you say? Opposed.
Okay. So that the referral loses on a 3-2 vote. All right. Next, Matthew. We're back to the item.
Councillor Holladay spoke and moved a motion, so anyone else other than Councillor Holladay see on the item.
So would anybody else like to speak to the item? Councillor Chang, you had a motion you wanted to move?
I do.
The floor is yours.
Is it ready?
It is.
It is. Great, thank you. So I think there's still some work that needs to be done to make this the best plan that it can be, and I'm hoping that these motions help get us there. So first is I'd like to see, right now the report does not have the amount of what the family discount is, and we know that raising a family is incredibly difficult. We also have a low birth weight. We really don't want to make life harder for families. So we're just asking to maximize the fare discounts. Also, I think it's important that we consult with the community for optimal locations for stops. We heard from the deputants that they did not feel that everything, was what they thought was needed. So asking that some further consultation happens before the 2026 season begins, and asking for the metrics of the projected ridership. I think that whenever we have something like this, we need more of the math to be upfront. What is the projected revenue? And although we don't need the complete business case, we should understand the viability. And so numbers on ridership and revenue would help us understand how viable is this model that is coming forth. So and we're hoping for that report. I'm sorry, this is different from what I was working on. This is not the motion that was just submitted. There are some differences. Can we take a couple minutes, please?
Yeah, give us a moment, Councillor Chang. This is the last item.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Chang, your motion is on the screen.
Yes, thank you. So I spoke to number 2 and 3. The first one is just requesting TTC to examine the feasibility and projected cost of an expanded High Park service year-round. And I think that would make it much more accessible to people if TTC were able to provide the service. So understanding what that would look like and the cost of it would be helpful. And lastly, just asking for the metrics to be presented as a supplementary report at the May session of City Council. So those are my motions, and hopefully we're able to expand the service next year in order to better serve accessibility. But I think we have to just have a little more information and more community engagement to get to the best plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chang. Questions of the mover?
I just have one.
Councillor Burnside, questions of the mover?
So, yeah, thank you, Chair. So, through you, so I believe it was point number 2 or part of number 2 of the motion. Are you concerned that staff haven't tried to maximize the discount and minimize the price? Is that not something that they
in a
should have been
preliminary
doing?
conversation, the discount that I was just, was shared with me was not something that I was satisfied with. In terms of it wouldn't necessarily help families, average size families in the city. So staff came back with this recommendation as an amendment, and they said that they would work on it to get it to be better.
Okay, I just am confused as to why they wouldn't have done that in the first place, but okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Burnside. I believe we're done speaking on this item. Oh, and sorry, I have a motion. I was wrong. I have a motion that I'm moving on behalf of Councillor Fletcher. Request the General Manager of Parks and Recreation to review multiple requests for shuttle service for Tommy Thompson Park, and in consultation with the Toronto Region Conservation Authority to report directly to the May 21st, 22nd, and 23rd City Council meeting with options to extend the proposed contract for the operation and maintenance of a passenger transportation shuttle to also service Leslie Spit and Tommy Thompson Park. Any questions of me?
No, but on a point of order, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Holiday, point of order.
I'll just forewarn, I'm going to ask for a number of recorded votes, so if you can just be patient with me.
Okay. All right, so we have the Councillor Holiday's motion to amend. He wants to delete recommendation number, oh, sorry, it's on the screen. All in favor? Opposed? Sorry, Councillor Chang, Councillor Burnside, I need your votes. Opposed or in favor?
I'm opposed.
Councillor Chang?
Same, opposed.
Sorry?
Opposed.
Okay. So Councillor Thompson's asking for a recorded vote on Councillor Holiday's motion. All in favor? Councillor Holiday in favor? Opposed? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Chang, Councillor Burnside. That amendment loses. Next amendment. Is the motion by Councillor Chang. All in favor? Opposed? No opposed, that carries. And then my motion, moving it on behalf of Councillor Fletcher, all in favor?
Recorded vote.
Councillor Holiday would like a recorded vote. All in favor? Councillors Thompson, Ainsley, Chang, Burnside, opposed. Councillor Holiday, that amendment carries. All in favor of the item as amended?
Mr. Chair, if I may, on point of order.
Point of order, Councillor Holiday.
I would like to have a recorded vote on clause number 2.
You already lost that one.
Recorded vote on clause number 2.
All right. So we're having a separate recorded vote on recommendation number 2 in the report. All in favor? Councillors Thompson, Ainsley, Chang, Burnside, opposed. Councillor Holiday, that carries.
And a recorded vote on the balance of the item as amended.
And a recorded vote on the balance of the item as amended. All in favor? Councillors Thompson, Ainsley, Chang, Burnside, opposed. Councillor Holiday, that item passes. Thank you very much, everybody, for one of the longer General Government Committee meetings and all of the staff's work. Oh, sorry, confirmatory bills. Don't run away yet. Councillor Thompson, would you like to read the confirmatory?
That confirmatory bills to confirm the legislative procedures of the General Government Committee acting under delegated authority at May 21st, at meeting 2021 on May 12th, 2025 be declared as bylaws and passed subject to sections 226.9 of the City of Toronto's Act 2006.
All in favor? That passes unanimously. All done? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, staff.